Today, I found out that my boyfriend has a secret 1-year-old daughter, as I literally found out about this from a sibling of his while I was in the middle of having dinner with his family. And now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because my boyfriend and I are still teenagers, and I can confidently say that I am definitely not ready to be a stepmom. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 15-year-old female, and recently I've been dating this guy that I'll call Derek for the sake of the story. He's 17 years old, and our relationship had been going perfect. He bought me flowers, took me out on cute dates, remembered small details about me, and calls me beautiful every single day. One day I was having dinner with him, his mom, and his sister when suddenly his sister asked me, "So Derek, how's the baby doing?" And I didn't think anything of it at first, thinking maybe she meant a cousin or something like that, until she turned to me and joked, "Wow, you're the world's youngest stepmother." And it's at that moment that it finally clicked. I raised an eyebrow and I looked at him and I said, "You have a baby?" And he quickly grabbed my hand and practically dragged me to his room and started explaining how it was an accident, but he has a 1-year-old from it. Now, at first I was supportive and I told him it was okay and that I understood, but that slowly started to dissolve when he started to text me and call me on the regular. He would ask me to watch the baby or take her places, and even wanted me to buy her diapers and formula. Now, I understand that he may need help, but I'm only 15 years old, and he has a job as well and a mother. After about 2 weeks of this, he asked me to cancel my softball game to watch his daughter, all while he would go out with his friends. And that's the moment when I snapped and I told him, "I'm not her mom. She is your responsibility and I want nothing to do with her. I'm only 15 years old, and if you're not okay with that, then I want nothing to do with you either." Well, he then called me a jerk and a bunch of other cruel names. And in that moment, I really felt bad for his daughter. I mean, she didn't ask to be born, but I refused to give up my teenage years taking care of someone else's child while her father goes to parties all the time. What should I do? Okay, I cannot believe what I just read. That is probably the craziest thing I've seen in a long time. Because holy crap, what do you mean he has a 1-year-old daughter? This guy knocked up some chick from high school at the age of 16, and he's trying to throw this on you to be like, "Hey, can you watch my daughter while I go partying?" Like, dude, what are you talking about? You guys are teenagers. You should not be having that kind of responsibility on your shoulders. Especially for the original poster. Like, they're 15 years old. They've only been dating for a little bit. Like, what's going on right now? Like, dude, you're only 15. You should not be dealing with this yet. That is way too young, especially from a guy who, for all intents and purposes, would probably get you pregnant as well. So holy crap, if I was in your shoes, I would run for the hills. I would dump him, say this is not working, and move on with my life. Because this entire scenario is incredibly sketchy and you can do way better than this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I don't forgive him and I never will, even on his deathbed? Because after having a lifetime of him treating me like crap, he only reached out to me when he realized that he was going to kick the bucket, forcing me to make a choice that honestly was incredibly hard. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I grew up with a father who was emotionally mistreating me for most of my life. He constantly belittled me, called me names, compared me to others, and made me feel like I was worthless. When I was a teenager, I struggled with anxiety and depression, and instead of helping me, he would say things like, "Oh, you're just being dramatic." Or he would say, "Oh, you'll never survive the real world if you can't handle me." When I finally left for college, I went no contact for years. My mom still tried to keep in touch with me, and while I maintained some contact with her, I never reconnected with him. He never apologized, not even once. Recently, I got a call from my mom saying that my dad's health had declined drastically, and now apparently he's in the hospital. She said that he's been asking to see me and wants to make things right before it's too late. Now, I hesitated for days, but eventually I went. When I saw him, he looked frail and weak, but as soon as I sat down, he started crying. He said to me, "I know I wasn't a good dad, but I want your forgiveness so I can have peace." But you know what? I told him calmly, "You don't get to do this now. You had decades to apologize and you never cared until you were dying. I don't forgive you and I never will." He then started crying harder and my mom looked furious with me. She later called me heartless and said I'd regret this for the rest of my life. But honestly, I feel relieved. Like I finally said what I needed to. I'm not angry anymore, but instead I'm just done. Even still, I can't help but wonder if I was too cruel. So am I at fault for the things I said to my dad, especially considering the way he treated me growing up? Because at this point, I don't know if this is a mistake or not. Okay, honestly, I can only imagine having that kind of upbringing and then being met with years of mistreatment and him refusing to apologize. Like, sure, this guy's passing away on his deathbed, literally in a hospital, and he's trying to make things right, but it's like, dude, you could have done this so many decades earlier. Because at that point, it really is too late. Sure, he feels guilty about it and he wants to find some kind of peace, but the original poster has has never had any peace with this situation. They've literally had a lifetime of their dad treating them like garbage. So I just can't stand the way he's acting. Him trying to make things right even though he knew what he did was wrong probably years ago. And someone in the comment section said it best, because I agree with this so much. They basically said it's always the people who are cruel and unusual towards you when you're a child, who have no conscience and make no effort to make things right, are the first person right at the last second when they're about to die to call you up and be like, I want to make things right. Like, I'm sorry, this is not some kind of movie. You're not the person who deserves closure in this situation. It's your child that you treated like crap for years. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk. This is obviously a very sensitive situation, and I'm sure this feels like a raw nerve. I mean, everything must be coming back to you like all at once, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. But regardless, I really hope you find some kind of like solace and like closure in this situation, because this seriously sounds awful, and I'm so sorry that you went through this. Today, I got some petty revenge by tracking down and confronting the Lyft driver that stole my AirPods, as I literally humiliated him in front of his entire family as they were trying to eat together at Chuck E. Cheese. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was visiting some friends in another city, and I dropped my AirPods in the back of a Lyft leaving a bar. I realized the next morning, and I sent the guy a lost item report, and he claims that he doesn't have them. So I just go back home and I forgot about it. Well, that is until about a day later, when I see in my Find My Device app that they were being charged and actively used, and I see them moving all around a city as a driver would. Now, I'm not usually a spiteful person, but that was brazen theft. Well, unlucky for him, I had some free time, and 2 weekends later, I tracked him down in a car with those same friends. The Find My Device app leads us to a Chuck E. Cheese, and we found his car in the parking lot. I then explained the situation to the security guard, and I showed him a picture of the Lyft driver. The security guard led us right to him, and I asked him straight up what his name was, to which he confirmed and nervously replied, yeah, that's me. I then said to him quite bluntly, you stole my AirPods. Well, as a result of all of this, his family had to all leave the Chuck E. Cheese to his car parked in the lot, and I got to watch him put them awkwardly back in the case and hand me back my AirPods. Now, I did feel bad, but come on, doing that is absolutely insane, so this guy absolutely deserved it. Oh man, this is one of those situations where it's like, man, I would lose my mind if someone did that. Seriously, just do the right thing, man. There is so much tracking capabilities out there for items that it's just not worth stealing, dude. He should have just been a good person and been like, yeah, I've got them, they're in my car, I can get them to you. But instead, he wanted to be a common thief, leading to him getting embarrassed in a way that I think he will never forget. Today, I participated in a nuclear revenge that honestly I never wanted to get mixed up in the first place, putting me in a situation where I was able to help my friend out in a way that he really needed. Here's how it all went down. Okay, let me start off by saying that this was something I didn't ask to be involved in. Recently, I helped expose my friend's ex-girlfriend who was cheating on him. She had ended their relationship with the classic, oh, I want to be friends, followed by the classic line of we should just be friends. My friend asked her a simple question, okay, who is the other guy? And she responded by asking how he knew, you know, the same predictable reaction in these situations. She eventually admitted that she was dating my cousin. The problem is that both she and my cousin are on probation, and in New York State, anyone on probation must avoid associating with others who are in trouble with the law. Now, my friend was understandably upset. He had invested almost a year into this relationship and had helped care for her 4-year-old autistic son, truly treating the child as if he were his own. He then called and asked if I could help even the score, since I had completed 6 years of probation myself. I then smiled and told him that I could absolutely explain the rules without any problem, which I definitely did. Subsequently, he went to both her probation officer and my cousin's officer to report their relationship. He also informed them about a firearm possession, which constitutes a probation violation. Then he mentioned to me that she was selling her food stamps, namely $50 in benefits for $50 in cash. And he actually asked me if this was illegal. And when I heard this, I just laughed. And I explained that yeah, if she was caught, she could permanently lose her benefits, and whoever was helping her would also be breaking the law. He then proceeded to report her to the Department of Social Services for fraud, then to the Social Security Administration for misappropriating her son's benefits. Finally, he reported her to her landlord for not paying rent, describing how the apartment was filled with trash and significantly damaged. And now, after all this, she's facing potentially 3 years in jail between the probation violations, the food stamp fraud, and pretty much everything else she's been doing. She's losing her financial support, her son's benefits, and possibly custody of her son. Now, I feel bad for the child, but her pattern of mistreating people and her general behavior is honestly something that simply could not continue any longer. Oh man, this is some deep crap. First of all, this is one of those situations where yeah, she does not sound like a winner and she absolutely needed to be put in her place. And this is not in some kind of like, ooh, I got revenge kind of way. This is a situation where she is literally breaking the law, and that is incredibly concerning, especially with a kid involved. So I think you did the right thing with all things considered, because this lady was not doing good things and she absolutely deserved to get punished. Am I the jerk for making my older coworker miss a major client meeting, all because I refused to cover his shift for free at the last second? Because right now he's saying that I sabotaged him, and at this point I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 19-year-old female, and I work part-time as a receptionist at a small firm while also taking night classes. My coworker, who I'll call Mark for the sake of the story, is 48 years old and the office manager. He is super disorganized, and our front desk is just the two of us. I gave him my academic schedule 3 months ago, so he would know exactly when I can and cannot work. Now, Mark has the habit of calling out last minute, usually citing some stomach issues, and pressuring me to cover his shift. He leans really hard on the line of being a team player and that you need initiative for advancement. A while back, he even had me work 12 hours straight unpaid, and I missed a critical college presentation because of that. Well, I documented it and emailed Human Resources, saying that I wouldn't cover unscheduled shifts overlapping with school unless it was approved and paid. Well, yesterday, 2 hours before a huge client meeting, Mark called hysterically, asking me to drop my last lecture to cover his shift. And of course, there was no mention of pay. He tried guilt-tripping me about all the flexibility I owed him, and said if anything went wrong, it would be my fault. But you know what? I stood firm. I told him that I couldn't come, and reminded him it's a management problem, not a staff shortage. Well, Mark missed the meeting, the client was upset, and now he's spreading it around that I sabotaged him. So seriously, am I the jerk for not rearranging my academic life just to bail him out? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, not only are you not the jerk, but this also sounds like a fantastic new email for Human Resources. You refused to work for no pay and to cover this at the last second, and now because of that, Mark's retaliating against you, actively spreading lies and starting a smear campaign. Like, I don't know if you know this, but that is absolutely not okay. That's incredibly unprofessional and unethical, and there's no reason you should ever put up with that. So no, you are not the jerk. You do not work for free. This is not a charity. And by the way, they had better pay you back for those 12 hours. Like, my God, if they didn't, I absolutely would be going somewhere else, because these people are taking advantage of you and you do not need that in the slightest. Would I be the jerk if I didn't let my sister move into my new apartment just so she and her partner can save money before getting their own place? Because right now this all feels very last minute and it's putting me in a really weird situation. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so yesterday I received a message from my sister, who I'll call Kim for the sake of the story. She asked if she could move in with me for a few months because her and her husband decided that they want to move out of the country. To do that, they need to save money. So they decided to not renew their lease and stay with family for a bit. Kim's husband is staying with his sister, who I'll call Julia, and Kim can't stay with Julia because Julia has mold in her house. Kim's 1-year-old son is dealing with some health problems, and living in a moldy home would make things worse for my nephew. Our mom's house also has mold too, and Kim's working with a specialist right now to help out with his health conditions. She then told me that it would only be for 3 months, because according to her, after 3 months, he will be healed enough to live in a home with mold in it, and they will then go back to Julia's house. Now, as for my new apartment, I haven't even had the meeting to sign the lease yet, but it is scheduled and the plan is to move in next month. The first main thing is that I love living alone. Having my own safe space to myself means everything to me. So at first I was like, no way. But I am very much a people pleaser, so I really felt bad saying no. Like, is it worth saying no to protect my peace? The second thing is that she has not brought up any kind of way to help around the apartment, such as payments or anything like that. So it seems like she's expecting to be in my space for at least 3 months with her child for free. The third thing is that their lease ends November 31st. And I just have a lot of questions. Like, when did they realize they were going to do this? What's the plan? What's the budget? Why did you wait so last minute to tell me about this? And many more questions. I told her that I would have to take some time to think about it and that I have a lot of questions that I need answered. We are going to have a more in-depth phone call tomorrow about it, but I just wanted some outside perspective because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this seems like a last-minute decision because they know you're going into a brand new apartment. And you've got the right mindset here. They're not talking about paying you back or paying to stay there or anything like that. And that, in my opinion, is a big red flag. Like, if I'm asking to stay at someone's place for 3 months, I'm also asking how much I can pay for rent. Because this really does seem very timely with you having a new apartment. And they probably waited till the last second and said, oh, maybe the original poster can help us out. So no, if you do say that your sister can't move in with you, I don't think you would be the jerk at all. I really don't think this is your problem, and I think if anything, this is the result of your sister not planning properly. And for me in my life, I've always lived by the saying that someone else's lack of planning is not my emergency. My husband refuses to allow me to have any access to our shared money, as I am constantly having to justify anything that I spend in our own home, putting me in a situation where I'm really frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my husband is the breadwinner of the family. I'm finishing school for another degree and starting a business from home, so his income takes care of pretty much everything right now, except when I freelance, I pay for whatever my son and I need instead of asking my husband for it. But I also pay bills and give him what he thinks he might need. Now, my husband just got a bonus of over $4,000, and I asked him for $300 cash just to save it. He then asked me why, and I reiterated to have something in my own savings. You know, just a little drawer at home. He then said, "No, I don't want you spending any money on your ungrateful adult kids." I then told him that I didn't plan on it, and then he said to me, "Well, no, because we have to pay for my younger son's end of school year field trip," which, by the way, that would be $200. So when he said that, I apologized and I told him, "Okay, forget that I asked. I know that your money is your money." He then said to me, "No, it's our money." But despite that, I still have no access whatsoever. No debit, no cash, literally nothing. I'm so tired of having to ask him for $20 to $40 when I need something, and having to explain what it's for, whether it's food items or personal items. I'm tired of any time extra money comes in that he's still in full control of. When I have money coming in steadily, I also pay bills. I make large payments during emergencies, I buy him gifts or things that he needs, etc. And I don't bat an eye about it because I love being able to help out, but when mine runs out, I have no access to his. So am I overreacting right now? Because this honestly is incredibly frustrating. No, you're not overreacting at all, because your husband is saying one thing but actually acting in a different way. If that money is literally for both of you, then why do you not have any access to it? Why do you have to justify everything that you're spending or buying all the time with this man? Like, that is obnoxious. I would hate that. And if anything, it kind of seems like he's financially mistreating you. Like, you really should have access to this money, especially if you're on like a joint account or something like that. So no, you're not the jerk. This is honestly really awful. And I think if I was in your shoes, I would also be pretty pissed off. My entitled shift leader tried to tell me that I couldn't go on an early break, as she said that me being in pain was not a good enough excuse. But after still recovering from surgery on my leg, I decided that enough was enough, forcing me to get revenge on these people by literally quitting in the middle of my shift on the busiest day of our week. And I'm honestly so satisfied by the way this went down. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of relevant information here, back in January, I found out I had a tumor in my tibia in my left leg, and it was pretty bad. I went for an appointment with a surgeon in April, and he told me I couldn't work at that time because of a risk of snapping the bone. So I had my surgery in June and finally returned to work about 2.5 weeks ago. Even though I returned with no restrictions, I was warned I would still have to be careful because it's still fresh, and if I push myself too hard, it could end badly. So this previous Sunday, I was working, and that is our busiest day. I was a curbside shopper and was on carryout. About an hour and a half into my shift, my leg started hurting so bad that I couldn't walk. Like, I seriously wanted to cry in pain. I then asked my shift leader if I could go on my break 20 minutes early because I couldn't walk and I just needed to rest so I don't cause any problems with my leg. Well, she responded by saying, "I'm in pain too. This is a team effort, and unless you have a doctor's note, you can't leave break." And by the way, I did have a doctor's note. So about 5 minutes later, she left on break anyways. Now, after taking a breath, I thought to myself, I am so done with this. I've had multiple issues with her before and nothing has ever been done about it. So after my 15-minute break, I went up to a manager and I said, "I'm done, I'm quitting." And then I walked to the time clock and I clocked right out. A few minutes later, I got paged to my department and I just kind of laughed. My main boss then showed up to work a few minutes later as I got my groceries, and I was checking out as he walked by, giving me a side glance, and then he turned his head away and looked really mad at me. But after all the stuff I had to go through, I was just done. I left in the middle of my shift on our busiest day and I opened all this week. So honestly, these people deserve it because they absolutely have mistreated me for far too long. Oh man, imagine being so heartless that you have to sit there and be like, "Oh, you had surgery on your leg and you're now in pain? Sorry, but you can't do that if you have a doctor's note," even though the original poster literally had one. Like, are you kidding me right now? I think the funniest part is something that someone else noted, and that is that you literally quit and then bought groceries for yourself all before leaving. Like, I don't know, that's really funny in my opinion, and I just love that visual. But regardless, good for you because this job sounds like it really sucked. An entitled Karen tried to scan my badge for a discount at the store I worked at, and then tried to claim that I attacked her when I took my badge back, resulting in one of the most bizarre situations I've ever been in my entire life. Here's how it all went down. Okay, to start things out, I work part-time at the big red store. I'm at the front end with the carts, and the pay is okay if you ask me. Well, yesterday a lady pushes a mountain cart to my lane, and the total for her items ends up being about just under $300. She then spots my lanyard and says to me, "Hey sweetie, scan your employee discount for me, okay? okay. I mean, we're all struggling right now. I then say to her, it's only for employee use or household. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Now, instead of taking no for an answer, she reaches over the counter and literally grabs my badge by the clip and then shoves the barcode at the reader. And this thing beeped angry. I then take it right back from her. And as a side note, no, I was not rough with her. I literally just took it back. But when I did that, she snaps at me and says, "Don't you touch me. What did you just do?" At this point, people are staring, my cheeks are burning, and my hands are shaky. My managers then walk up, and we go to the tiny camera room that smells like dust toner. The video eventually shows her handle my stuff clear as day. And at this point, she starts crying again. She asks for a gift card and says that I ruined her kid's birthday. It was here that the manager prints a trespass notice. She then claims that she will call corporate and get me fired. Well, later on, my manager says that she called again, saying that I apparently promised her 20% off of a microwave that was just under $30. But thankfully, corporate shut that crap down. But after all that, I definitely went home tired because I am so exhausted dealing with customers who act this way. Dude, that is bonkers to me. Seriously, how can someone act like that? Imagine being so entitled that you think you're entitled to an employee discount, but also lie and say that someone attacked you after they literally tried to get their employee badge back. That is honestly crazy to me, and I'm so sorry that happened, but also it's so nice that she got in trouble for what she did, because that kind of behavior is completely unacceptable. An entitled customer challenges me and forces me to prove that I'm a veteran, claiming that I don't look the part and that I'm probably just lying just for attention. But I turn the tables on this guy in a beautiful fashion, forcing him to drive off in a fury, humiliated that he couldn't do the same. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that this just happened this morning. I drove over to a big box hardware store to buy some more packing tape, and this particular store has a nice parking area listed for veterans only, and they say thank you for your service. So okay, I don't know about other vets, but I pretty much hate the entire thank you for your service bit. Not the fact that people are grateful, but rather that it's become a different version of have a nice day. In short, it's something that is said by rote in certain situations without much thought or true feeling. On the other hand, I do like parking closer to the doors. So I pull into one of the 6 veteran slots, I turn off the car and I get out, only to find that my car is being scrutinized by Captain America. Not the real deal, of course, but a man who is wearing so much Patriot branded crap, but a Second World War living legend would facepalm and say, "Oh, are you kidding me?" So for the sake of this tale, we'll call him Captain. That's obviously not his real name. Without looking up from my bumper, Captain says to me, "So, you're a veteran, huh?" I frowned at his tone and I replied by saying, "Yeah, is that a problem?" Captain finally looked at me, frowning under his little red hat, and he said to me, "Prove it." I was kind of shocked when he said that. I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "I said, prove it, pal." He then turned and gestured at a jacked up pickup. I didn't notice it when I parked, and I don't know how. Possibly it was my brain refusing to believe what my eyes were seeing. It was covered in stickers and mottos and had a flagpole in the bed, flying an oversized flag. He then says to me, "That's the ride of a veteran. You don't even have a bumper sticker or a single American flag. So prove to me that you're a veteran." I simply just looked at him, I shook my head, and I said, "No. Anything else?" He sneered and walked away, pulling out a phone. I watched him walk up to a guy standing outside of the store and get into what seemed like a heated discussion. I waited to see if anything would come of it and then shrugged and started for the entrance. However, the guy he had been yelling at called me over. He introduced himself as the manager of the store and explained to me, "Excuse me, sir, but this gentleman is of the opinion that you are taking advantage of our veteran parking. I'm sorry, but can you possibly prove that you served in the military, please?" And when he said this, I was honestly blown away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't believe that they were seriously trying to make me prove that I was a veteran. So I thought about it for a moment, but he looked hazard and did ask me to prove it with a please at the end of it. So I smiled and pulled out my retired ID. I said to them, "I served about 2 decades ago and I'm medically retired. Is that good enough for you?" The manager thankfully apologized. But at that point, I was ready for revenge. So I said to them, "Okay, what about this guy?" Captain then looked at me and said, "What?" He looked absolutely astonished. I said to him, "Well, you insisted that I prove I'm a veteran. How about yourself? Do you have anything else other than your terrible sense of personal taste to prove that you served? He complained that he served 2 tours in the sandbox, and I did expect him to carry his 214 on him, so I interrupted and pointed out that he seemed to expect that of me, so he either needs to put up or shut up. When he couldn't provide a VA card, the manager insisted that he move his America-mobile out of the veterans parking lot simply out of fairness. Instead, Captain roared off in a self-righteous cloud of patriotic diesel smoke and promises to get all the local veterans to boycott this store. Now, the manager didn't seem to worry when he heard this, but I gave him my name and number in case Captain decided to complain to corporate, and in return, he was nice enough to give me a discount on my packing tape. This is honestly the best way this could have ended. First off, just because you don't have all this weird stuff on your car doesn't mean that you didn't serve in the military. Like, that's ridiculous. And it's honestly mind-blowing that this guy would be like, you need to prove that you are a veteran. Like, no, he doesn't. What are you talking about? Does this guy just sit in this parking lot and monitor who drives up and determine who is and isn't a veteran based on their car? The captain of this story sounds absolutely obnoxious, and it's honestly incredibly ironic the second the tables were turned. Yes, the original poster, they were able to prove outright that they were a veteran, and they had the card to prove it. But when the tables were turned, this entitled guy didn't have anything to stand on. All he had were the stupid bumper stickers that he had, as well as all these flags and trinkets basically screaming that he probably has stolen valor. And that, in my opinion, is so disgusting. So hopefully this guy never comes back, because based on the way this guy was acting, he absolutely deserved to get called out and made to look like a fool. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled customer mocks my other customer and makes fun of him because of his autism, and I'm now left thinking that I didn't handle that situation correctly, and I could have done more to protect this customer, and at this point, I'm not really sure what to do. So I work at a popular soul food chain in the southeast part of the United States. For starters, I have autism, and I am high functioning. I have been working as a waiter for about 3 years to help myself with social interactions, as well as being able to get over overstimulating environments. Today, I was nearing the end of my shift, and I had about 3 tables eating, and they didn't need anything from me. A man about in his mid-30s is seated in my section, so I go up to him and I greet him. I introduce myself, and the first thing he does is ramble to me about the sirloin steaks and the proper way to cook them and so on. This then goes on for several minutes. I patiently listened as my other tables were happy. He goes on to explain that every time he comes to the restaurant that I work at, they always seem to mess up his steak. Now, usually when someone says this to me, it comes off as malicious towards me and the other staff, but this was not the case for this guy. He just explained how he wanted the steak done and even showed me pictures. I went to the back and I placed his order and went about my shift. Approximately 10 minutes later, his plate is ready. I take one look at the steak and I see that it is completely overdone. I cringe because this guy was very adamant about his steak, but I decided to bring it out anyways and just let him see it. I put it down in front of him and I ask if it's still acceptable or if he would like it remade, and I say this calmly to him. He looked at it and I watched as he started to panic. He wasn't angry, definitely frustrated, but not angry. I told him that I was sorry about the steak and I could get it remade if he wanted. He looked up at me on the verge of tears and said he didn't want to waste the steak and he wished that the kitchen had just made his steak properly. Now, I'm used to the angry guests that regularly come in, but this was different. I knew this wasn't just about the steak. I reassured him that no one was angry with him and that it was no problem to get him a replacement. Throughout my efforts to calm him down, I noticed a man from one of the other tables really getting a kick out of this guy, laughing and loudly talking about him and such, and this didn't help the situation at all. I managed to calm him down enough to then leave and get him a new steak. When I brought it back, he was incredibly happy with it. I debated on doing this, but I decided to ask if he was doing okay. He got quiet and then he kind of mumbled that, well, I'm autistic. I'm sorry, I always do this. And that's when it all clicked for me. After that, him and I discussed life with autism together, and his demeanor completely changed. He happily told me all that he could about steaks, as well as his other special interests. I was happy to listen, as I could tell this guy didn't get to talk about this to many people. All the while, the guy at my other table was still talking loudly about this guy. Even though I was trying my best to keep my attention to this guy, my blood honestly started to boil. Eventually, the man being disrespectful got up and leave. He shouted out to me saying good luck and then walked away laughing. I don't really know what I'm looking for in this post, but I honestly want to know, did I handle this properly? Should I have said something to this ignorant jerk? I'm honestly not sure what I should have done differently. Honestly, it sounds like you handled this situation really well. You had a customer who had specific sets of needs and you attended to them really well. Like, you really really were taking care of him and making sure he was feeling comfortable. And that, in my opinion, is the mark of a really good server. It shows that you care about the customers. You want them to be happy, you want them to have a good experience, and more importantly, specific to your industry, you wanted him to have the right food. You very easily could have ignored him and said, you know what, I just don't want to do this. This is not worth my time, it's not worth my energy. I really don't want to deal with having this steak in the specific way this guy wants. And sure, you could have dismissed him and said, sorry, not much I can do about it. But you didn't. You understood where he was coming from and you were just trying to help him out. If anything, the guy at the other table is the absolute jerk here. He was being super rude. He was talking badly about this guy, he was treating him poorly, and I'm surprised that you didn't say anything. But in that same vein of thought, talking to that guy and getting in some kind of confrontation probably would have been very upsetting to this other guy. He seemed like he had a very specific need and he wanted things done a specific way. So I think you catered to this guy's needs perfectly, and I honestly don't think you have anything that you should regret. My sister-in-law is constantly being passive-aggressive towards me while also making jabs at every little thing that I say. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my sister-in-law is constantly making underhanded jabs at me, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. Her and my brother have been married for about 4 years now, and they have a 2.5-year-old and another one on the way. Before the baby was born, I wasn't that close to her or my brother. We saw each other on the holidays, but they favor their other families, and I understand that. After the baby was born, I made a real effort to be close to my niece. I took over helping watch her for a few times a week after my sister-in-law went back to work. My niece really adores me because of all the time we spent together when she was small, and I did my best to better my relationship with my brother and sister-in-law, especially for my niece's sake. However, pretty much any time I'm around my sister-in-law, she says something snarky to me or belittles something I say. For example, just today, my niece was pointing at a picture of some donkeys and calling them cows instead of donkeys. We all gently corrected her, but she was insistent. I jokingly said, "Alright, you've convinced me they're cows," and my sister-in-law quickly said, "God, you're such a pushover." Another time she told me I was the type of girl that grandmas would love, and it wasn't in a nice context. She is always making these weird jabs at me, and I don't understand why. It's actually making me feel bad, and I always feel uncomfortable after spending time with her. I don't call her out for my niece's sake, but I'm beginning to think I need to handle it much differently. Where is this animosity coming from? Why does she treat me like that? I have really tried to be kind to her, and I'm never rude to her or anything like that. So I'm truly lost as to why she's acting like that, and I seriously don't know what to do. It really sounds like your sister-in-law is incredibly toxic, and she's either being a bully just for the sake of being a bully, or she's incredibly jealous of you. And your sister-in-law is being the type of person where if you did call her out, she would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm joking, wow, you're so sensitive." Like anything you say is going to be twisted against you, and that is really not okay. There's a difference between telling a joke and then just treating someone like garbage and trying to hide it like a joke. And in my opinion, if both parties aren't laughing at something someone else said, then guess what? It's not a joke. They really mean that. But in that same vein of thought, you know what? Eventually enough has to be enough. Like, how long are you going to put up with these comments? In my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be calling her out. Like, whether that's in public or private. You can try the whole private aspect of this first. You can say, "Hey, let's talk real quick," and pull her in a separate room, and then just hash it out like adults. Say to her, "Listen, I don't like you talking to me like that. You really need to stop making these subtle jabs at me, and it seems like you're always ready to dogpile on me anytime I say something you don't like." Which, by the way, is a terrible thing to do to somebody. You don't deserve to be treated like that, and you don't deserve to be talked to like that. That's unacceptable, and honestly, you should not put up with that. There is another side of this where you could just play dumb and make her explain what she's saying, because that will definitely catch her in her words and probably show exactly how stupid she really is acting. So all in all, it sounds like this lady is either jealous, insecure, or is just a straight up jerk. And in one way or another, it really is time to say something and put a stop to this once and for all. My manager is trying to ruin my life at the company I work at after we had a falling out, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my manager and I were acquaintances at a previous company a few years back. Then eventually, he was hired at my current company. He started off working the same position as me, but the position was more of a filler role, and it was known that he would eventually be promoted to manager. And to top it all off, I was the one who trained him. We got along well, and he was a lot nicer than I remembered him. He wanted constant reassurance that he and I had good rapport. He wanted to know me as a person, and I appreciated that. However, I encouraged him to get to know our colleagues of the same title, especially since he and another colleague had a mutual friend. I also told him on multiple occasions that I keep work friends and non-work friends friends separate. Regardless, he always gravitated to me, and I figured it was just because he was familiar with me. One time, I mentioned having to find a parking spot during an anticipated snowstorm, and this was all in our work chat. It was his day off, but he saw the message and immediately called me to offer to pick me up from my parking spot and drop me off at my home. Then he offered to pick me up the next morning and take me to my parking spot. Even though we live in the same town, I simply refused. Yet he insisted that he wanted to do it to show his appreciation for me as my manager. I still declined, but later on he offered to carpool me with his wife's SUV, but I said no thank you, and the next day he took his own car instead of the SUV. He would often ask me to meet with him, but he wanted it to be in person. With other colleagues, however, he would just message or call them for any request. If I couldn't do an in-person meeting, he would just wait. He has never asked other colleagues to meet with him in private specifically. He would make time for me or buy snacks that I liked, but not with my other colleagues. He would cancel entire meetings with our colleagues if I couldn't make it. He often called me on my days off or even on his days off to talk about things that could wait until my scheduled shift and sent me non-work related videos. In fact, other colleagues felt a lack of respect from him. When he and I got into a work-related conflict, I blocked him from contacting my personal number, and that set him off to try and dismiss me and try to push me out of the department. I told HR that he may have crossed boundaries between a manager and a subordinate, but HR actually defended him, saying he thought that we were friends because we worked together. If he was trying to meet me outside of work, it would be another story. Again, he never treated my other colleagues the way he treated me, and he only attempted to get to know other colleagues after our conflict. For instance, he went for drinks with a colleague I'm close to. My manager attempted to get on his good side, but it didn't work out, and my colleague shut him down when he tried to talk about me. This colleague also warned me about the dark side of him after that night. How can I possibly fix this situation? What should I do? Your manager is seriously crossing some professional boundaries. Like, honestly, this guy is really being toxic, and it doesn't help that HR is defending his weird actions. Like, it seriously sounds like he really likes you or something, and he's being very strange and sketchy and trying to drag you into these private meetings. I mean, personally, I would not be okay with that, and I would tell this guy to just back off. Like, clearly he liked you and you offended him, so now he's doing everything he can to try and ruin your experience at work, and that is not okay, and it's also not allowed. This kind of behavior could easily be seen as retaliation of some kind, and that is something that corporate absolutely needs to hear, because clearly HR is completely useless in this situation. They're defending some guy who's being an absolute weirdo to you, and you don't deserve that in the slightest. And the original poster actually goes on to say that they sent an email to corporate and they're waiting to hear back. So hopefully that conversation with corporate goes well, because these kinds of actions and the way your manager is acting is super out of line, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. I found out that my boyfriend makes nearly $1 million a year, and I can't help but feel super jealous, and at this point I don't know what to do. So I've been seeing this guy for about a month and a half, and we hit it off really well. We grew up in the same area despite living abroad, so we connected in a great way. He's really nice to me, and I love spending time with him. I go over to his place a lot, and I could see myself wanting to take things further with him. I noticed right off the bat that he was well off. He lives in a beautiful high-rise condo above the city, which would cost a fortune, and he mentioned offhand how he owns multiple properties as well as travels frequently. I figured he just came from a privileged background, which he does, but what really made me feel sick with envy was when I asked what he earns at his job. Some background is that we both work in finance. I work in investment banking, and he works as a derivative trader. My personal workload is horrendous, and I usually pull 70 to 80 hours a week, including weekends, and I make around $100,000 a year, which really does not feel like a lot of money in our city. I asked him what he earns while out for drinks, and he said he cleared about $1 million all in comp during his best year at his firm. I wanted to throw up when he said that. He works 50 hours per week maximum, shows up at the office when he wants, and never works weekends. Later that night, I began researching how I might get this type of job, as it's too late for me to switch careers having just graduated college. I also did an internship in trading, but quickly found out the screening process involves several math-heavy assessments, which I know I probably wouldn't be able to pass. I'm good at math, but not genius level, and some of these practice tests were just insane. It makes me feel better that he told me he failed the test when he took it, but apparently because he met the CEO while getting drinks, the CEO gave him another shot at interviewing and was finessed in. I guess I just started down this spiral of self-doubt about my technical abilities, as as well as my earning potential, which has been hard to pull myself out of. I have always been a competitive overachiever. I grinded in high school to get into an Ivy League school, and I grinded college to get my current job. And this is a job where there's less than a 2% acceptance rate. Despite this, I never outwardly showed my competitiveness that much, I guess. I was always very supportive of my friends' career paths no matter what they accomplished, but this feels way different, as it's a romantic interest. I don't know, I just feel like I'll always be in second place to him, because I will never be able to make as much money as quickly as he has. And if I do make that much money in the future, it will be at the expense of my work-life balance. Like, I really think I could do this job very well if I had the time to prepare. I think there are other ways I could get the job, and I could easily switch back to the trading desk, or even make a lateral move with some networking. But I keep telling myself I'm missing the point. That point being that I am my own unique person with unique talents and strengths, which may be better suited in a different role. I studied liberal arts and foreign languages in college. I'm great at writing and argumentation naturally, while he comes from an engineering background and has been doing the more quantitative stuff as a main focus for years. I keep trying to think positively about it, but I literally just cried because of how jealous I was. Has anyone ever experienced something similar to this? What should I do? Honestly, if you have any hope of having any kind of longevity with this guy, I think you really need to get over yourself. Sure, he makes a lot of money, but it sounds like in this relationship, that's the only thing you're thinking about. I mean, someone somewhere is always going to be making more money than somebody else. That's just how it works. Unless you're Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, you're not going to have all this money. And I think on the other end of that, this guy probably worked incredibly hard to get where he's at. That $1 million didn't come overnight. He probably worked incredibly hard and just so happened to get a better job than you, at least paying wise. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really shouldn't be any problem with your spouse or your partner making more money than you. If you really are a team and if you really want to see this through to the end, this should be a good thing for both of you. So honestly, in my own opinion, even if it sounds mean, I think it might be healthier to take a step back and try and be happier for your partner. He worked just as hard as you did to get where he's at, and by being jealous of his success is only going to cause friction and distance between the two of you. An entitled mother demands that I let her son ride my horse, but even after I say no, this entitled mother grabs the reins to my horse, trying to force me to let her kid ride my horse. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I have 3 horses, 2 who are really sweet and 1 who has extreme anxiety and is terrified of people, especially young kids. He was hurt for the first 6 years of his life, all the way up until he was rescued and I later bought him, and that was 4 years ago. And all the way up until now, I have used so much of my time to gain his trust. Now that backstory is going to be important. Also, my horse gets anxiety when he isn't around his siblings or me, which is also going to be important. So we had an open stable, which is basically an event where families get to come to the farm and meet the animals and try to ride the horses. And the owner asked if they could borrow 2 of the sweeter horses, which I happily agreed to. Now, since I couldn't leave my anxious horse with the other horses, I was also asked if I could go on a few trips with some visitors just to teach them how to ride. It was a very short trip, but it was one of those trips that really stood out. So a boy, maybe 9 years old, was put on the laziest pony ever, and he didn't seem happy. But when the kid saw my horse, the anxious one, the kid lit up and jumped off the pony just to walk over to me, with their mom right behind them in tow. And the mom to this spoiled kid is the entitled mother of this story. She walks up to me and says, "Excuse me, my son wants to ride that horse. Can you please switch with him?" I looked at her and I said, "I'm sorry, no, but this is my horse." But the entitled Karen didn't believe me. She said, "No, it's a farm horse." So I gently corrected her and I said, "No, I own him. He is a private horse. But no, unfortunately, you cannot ride my horse." The entitled mother got upset when I said this and said to me, "Why not? He doesn't want the lazy horse." So I went on to further explain, "Ma'am, it's my horse, and I'm guessing your son has very little riding experience. This horse is not for beginners, and he doesn't like strangers." Now, after I said that, this entitled mother does something I seriously did not expect. She reaches up and grabs the reins to the horse. And when she did this, I seriously was blown away. The entitled kid then chimes in and says, "I want to ride him," with a mom looking down at their kid and saying, "I know, but that boy won't let you. He doesn't think that you're good enough." The entitled kid then just started screaming and yelling. He kept screaming that he wants to ride it over and over again. And at this point, I seriously got annoyed. I looked at this entitled mother and I said, "Lady, either get your son's butt on the pony or leave, because you are not going to get a ride with my horse. It's dangerous and not safe for kids, and if he falls off, he will seriously get hurt. Thankfully, my brother was there to step in. He looked at this entitled mother and said, "Lady, the horse is almost my height. I have landed in the hospital because of that horse, and I got away with a broken arm. That horse does not like kids. Your son will get more injured than I did, and the original poster is basically saving your son's life." Which, by the way, this is all true. My brother tried to ride my horse and was knocked off the horse. Even after my brother explained what happened, this entitled mother wasn't having it. She said to us, "You're just making that up because you're some stuck-up rich brat." Having had enough, I look at her and I say, "All right, lady, leave. I'm not going to give you my horse." The entitled mother then shouts that she's going to tell the owner, but I say to her, "Go ahead. I have 6 witnesses that can back me up." After that, the entitled mother left, and I was later asked about it from the owner. But thankfully, and as you would expect, nothing happened to me. The owner took my side, and I never had to deal with this entitled Karen ever again. The entitled mother in this story is really awful. Like, what an awful parent. You were literally trying to force your kid onto a horse that doesn't like kids. It's almost like you wanted your kid to get hurt. Like, seriously, you suck as a parent. I don't know about you, but a large animal who could seriously injure me is not something I want to mess with, especially if they're not good with kids or other people. And those horses, when they're scared or unsure of what's going on, they can seriously hurt you. They are not to be messed with. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's only going to get worse. So seriously, good for the original poster for standing their ground. This entitled mother didn't know what she was doing, and she was only going to cause more damage than good. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled hospital roommate that I had to share a room with was being absolutely obnoxious and incredibly rude to the entire hospital staff. And it was honestly so embarrassing to deal with on a daily basis, and I'm so glad I don't have to deal with him anymore. Here's what happened. So to start things off, I was in a very bad driving accident about 20 years ago. The car struck a sycamore tree at about 50 miles an hour. Now, relax, the tree was fine, but I was definitely not. I was in the front passenger seat, and the engine came through the firewall and crushed my legs, and the hot metal gave me second-degree burns as well. I also had a few broken ribs, a cracked sternum, a punctured lung, some bruised internal organs, a broken nose, and a bunch of broken teeth. So yeah, I was a mess. Now, my roommate, who I will now refer to as Scooter, that's not their real name, was there because he had a cyst on his arm, and he was a miserable wretch. I mean, fresh air would have made this guy mad. He complained constantly about literally everything, and maintained a base level of hostility towards everyone, even his girlfriend. She stopped visiting him after the first day I was awake, and for some reason, he blamed the nurses for it. You would think he was being bitten by fire ants. Whenever he was asked to rate his pain from 1 to 10, his answer was always higher than 10. Scooter was a cook at a fire hall. I don't mean he cooked for firemen, at least in my area. A fire hall is a sort of blue-collar private club with cheap beer and greasy food. I knew what he did for a living because he periodically called the guy covering his shifts just to micromanage him and argue about inconsequential garbage. Meanwhile, I'm laying there with 14 broken bones and some broken teeth that hurt whenever they are exposed to air. I even had a chest tube, and I couldn't go more than 5 or 10 minutes without coughing, which hurt like crazy when you have broken ribs. When asked to rate my pain, I figured a 10 would be like your organs were hanging out of you, or you were missing large patches of skin. So I think the highest number I gave was about 4. I was in miserable shape, but I hated hearing Scooter verbally getting aggressive with the hospital staff. If it weren't for him, I might have snapped at someone occasionally, but instead, I made a point to always greet them with as much cheerfulness as I could muster, and always saying please and thank you and expressing appreciation out loud, especially so Scooter could hear it. I was worried about taking too much pain medication, so I would wait until the pain was getting close to unbearable before asking for any more. At one point, I asked for pain meds, and there was a perfect storm of bad luck. My prescription had run out, but there was a shift change, and they couldn't find anyone who was on my treatment team to write a new one. It took almost 2 hours to get it sorted. I mean, honestly, no one could have faulted me for being just a little bit cross. A few hours earlier, when they had brought us our lunch, Scooter had thrown an epic temper tantrum because he had asked for peas and was given corn. He started yelling all these obscenities at the staff and threw his tray across the room. It took a good 15 minutes to get him another tray, and he didn't stop yelling until it came. Even after it arrived, he was mollified. He snapped at everyone who came in for at least the next hour about the garbage operation that they were apparently running. So when I had to wait for the relief from my pain, I took great satisfaction in remaining cheerful. The nurses kept apologizing every time they came in to check on me and give me a progress update, but I kept assuring them that I knew they were doing their best, and I was thanking them for their efforts. this. I repeatedly said, don't worry, it's not like you brought me corn instead of peas or anything serious like that. When they did get someone to write a new prescription, they started me out with a shot, so relief was almost instantaneously. As it kicked in, I told the nurse who gave it to me that they are an angel and I absolutely love them. I had a long and difficult recovery. When I left the hospital, I moved to a rented hospital bed in my brother's living room. I needed a wheelchair for 3 months and crutches for 7 to 8 months after that. I had 2 more surgeries over the next year and a half and almost 3 years before I could even return to work. In large part because of my experience sharing a room with Scooter, I never lost my sense of humor. Yeah, that guy named Scooter really is a jerk. I mean, he was getting angry over literally everything, snapping at the staff and treating them like garbage in general. And that's awful. I can only imagine having that as a roommate at a hospital. Like, that seriously had to have been a crazy thing to deal with every single day. Like, seriously, who actually wants to eat the vegetables from a hospital? Meanwhile, Scooter over here is freaking out because he didn't get peas. Like, come on, get a grip. And I'm sure the staff loved you for actually being kind and reasonable, because the way Scooter was acting was completely out of line, and he seriously needed a reality check. My girlfriend does not listen to me unless I cause World War III, and this is all over her smoking in our apartment, even though we're not allowed to smoke in that apartment with the threat of losing our lease. And I'm seriously so frustrated and I don't know what to do. So I've been with my girlfriend coming up on 2 years now, and we have been living together for about a year. My partner smokes, and technically we are not allowed to smoke in our building. I am concerned about bothering the neighbors, and it makes me very anxious that we will get a complaint from the neighbors or the landlord. Housing is extremely scarce where we live, so I deeply do not want to upset any of the neighbors and lose our lease. I don't want her to quit smoking entirely, since she doesn't want to and it is her body, but I have asked that she not smoke when other people are likely to be on their balconies, as well as not smoking for long periods of time. She has slowly, and I mean very, very slowly, started doing some of the things I've been asking, but it's always only one of those things. Like, she will smoke for a short period of time, but she will do it when we can audibly hear people outside next door. Every single evening we have this discussion, and it's like a war of attrition, where she will grudgingly say yes and then not do it, or do it for a day and then stop. Eventually, I blew up and told her that I'm sick of all my evenings being stuck having this argument. It is a constant level of anxiety and I'm sick of it. Then she goes off and sulks for the next 2 days. This pattern is exhausting, and it's not even about the smoking, so the specifics of the situation aren't as important, but it's the fact that I have to keep saying, stop doing that, please stop doing that. And it's always finally followed by a giant argument where eventually she starts to get the message, and it's like a running pattern in our relationship like this. I feel like I don't get listened to until I cause World War III, and it's really not fair for me, and I seriously don't know what to do. The way your girlfriend is acting is incredibly obnoxious and super toxic, and honestly, if my girlfriend was threatening my living situation and refusing to listen when I'm being serious, then that personally would be a massive deal breaker, and she would definitely need to move out. There's no way that's going to be put up with. She is jeopardizing your ability to have a place and a roof over your head, and this is a very selfish thing to do. And sure, you can't make her quit smoking, like whatever, I get that whole notion of like it's her body, she can do what she wants. But when this threatens your ability to have a place to live, that activity absolutely cannot happen in the apartment. Sorry, end of story, it's not happening. Not on the balcony, not in the apartment, it simply cannot happen. And you know for a fact the landlord is going to catch that eventually. She's playing with fire by doing that in your apartment, especially when you're not allowed to smoke or do anything like that in the apartment. Like, that's not okay. That has seriously got to stop. So I don't blame you for getting upset. This is absolutely reasonable, and your girlfriend is being unreasonable. And seriously, something needs to change with her like immediately. Otherwise, both of you are going to find yourself on the street without a place to live. My wife has a very close guy friend that has been texting her almost every day for several years, and it makes me incredibly uncomfortable, and I'm seriously not sure what to do. So my wife has a close guy friend, and they've been texting almost every day since the last 6 to 8 years, even till today. We're both in our late 30s, and we have been married for the last 10 years. We have absolute trust in each other and absolutely hide nothing from each other. We have complete confidence in each other when it comes to socializing with close friends from the opposite gender. Unfortunately, not for this specific one guy. He was her colleague from previous companies and have known each other for very long. I do happen to know him as well and found him to be a nice guy initially. From the start, I knew they have frequent or daily communication via text messaging. They've got nicknames for each other, and I don't mind it at all because of the trust that we have. In the recent few years, my wife got an overseas job and had to relocate. Right before she flew, he wanted to meet and give her some of her things. And then he told her that he actually liked her all all along. All this despite him already being engaged to his girlfriend, who is now his wife. We are very open in our relationship, thus she told me straight away about what happened. From then on, I lost respect for this guy. I'm not sure what his purpose was to reveal how he felt to my wife, but I can't even imagine what would happen if his current wife was to know the truth. A couple of years have passed, and till this date, they are still texting each other consistently. Now, I want to reiterate that I have absolute trust in my wife, and if she finds it okay to keep texting him, then I'm okay with it as well, but it doesn't mean that I will be happy about it. I have asked and talked to my wife about how I felt about his constant messages. She reassured me that he's just that good friend who can provide listening ears. To be honest, I actually loathe the whole idea very much, and I bear so much hatred towards this guy, no matter how good of a friend he is. I am not sure if it makes sense to text every single day, mostly coming from the guy, of course. My stand as a fellow man is this: if you have told a girl that you liked her, there is no way this feeling will ever be gone, especially when the girl is willing to keep texting you back. And I am very sure if something happens in our relationship, he will be the first one to pounce on her and ditch his wife. I am making a lot of assumptions here, but I don't think I'm totally wrong. I still do respect my wife's wishes, and I'm not going to stop her, nor occasionally probing her about what's going on. But this all just feels so unjust, and I seriously don't know what to do. That guy screams red flags in my opinion. He confesses to your wife that he likes her, and then still texts her and communicates with her every day? Like, come on, that's a little weird. Doesn't this guy already have his own wife? Like, why is he sniffing around towards yours? So I can completely understand why you would feel jaded, and you would feel some kind of way about this guy talking to your wife. That's not okay in my opinion, and he seriously needs to back off. And sure, you don't want to tell your wife who she can and cannot be friends with, but it doesn't sound like this guy wants to be friends. It sounds like this guy wants a little bit more than just friendship. He confessed his feelings for her. This isn't just the average guy friend who's just there to hang out and be a good friend. That would be way different, because I'm with you. I really do think this guy still has feelings for your wife, and if you were to leave the picture, he absolutely would try to step in. It also makes me question if your wife knows how uncomfortable you feel about this. So maybe sitting down and talking to her about it and saying, hey, the second this guy confessed his feelings for you is the second I no longer trusted him. And maybe just get that out in the open so she can understand where you're coming from. But hopefully some kind of consolidation can be made, because this guy is definitely sniffing around for something else, and I don't blame you for being upset in the slightest. My wife is very clearly hiding something from me after she reacts so poorly to me inquiring about what's on her phone. And now things have escalated to a point where she is currently staying with her landing pad family, and she is only talking to me via text messaging. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so we've been married for going on 3 years, and we dated for around a year before that. Last summer, I found out that my wife was still receiving messages from this guy that she used to see around the same time that we got together. It was kind of an episode with her snatching her phone out of my hand, but she eventually let me look through her messages, as well as some other stuff, and I was placated with her promise to block him. And I was literally just holding her phone at the time when the text came in. I was not snooping around at all. Fast forward to last Wednesday, and we are riding the subway to go out for dinner, and I happen to see this dude's thumbnail image as she quickly scrolled through her messages as if to keep me from noticing. At first, she tried to show me a recent text from a friend and try to say that that was the message, but it was not the WhatsApp notification that I was talking about. As we were exiting the subway platform, I looked back to see her deleting her reply. I had to drag out of her that he only just texted her again that morning, and checking the message history seemed to confirm it. Deleting her reply, though, really bothered me, and I wasn't satisfied. I told her that I needed to check her phone if she wanted to avoid damaging my trust, and she'd let me check her Facebook and instant messaging, but when I went to see what apps she had installed, she snatched it out of my hands again and wouldn't give it back. I tried to plead with her that she was doing irreparable damage, but she wouldn't budge, and I wasn't about to snatch it back and risk her escalating to a physical confrontation in public. In my mind, she had just all but confirmed my fears anyways. We went home and I ignored her for the rest of the night. Thursday, we didn't really speak to each other much. She tried to explain that she had dating apps still installed, but hadn't used them in years, and was worried how I would react to some old messages. I had remained very calm, if a bit grim, this whole time after finding out about the new message, so that just didn't track, and it honestly felt like a half-truth. She started despairing that I wouldn't forgive her or ever trust her again, which I mean, yeah, those are exactly the consequences I warned her about when she snatched the phone out of my hand. Friday, after I left for work, she messaged me to let me know she was going to stay at her landing pad family, and that is family she stayed with for several years while immigrating to the United States. She has a room there and usually stays for a few days each month when they need some translation help or something along those lines. I was not happy with this. She said she wanted to give me space, but it felt like she was running away from the uncomfortable consequences. We've had a couple of text conversations since then, but it's just going in circles. She minimizes her lying by saying stuff like, "I didn't believe one message could cause all this. I didn't do anything really bad." Then she gets offended when I remind her of her lies. She then says that she already apologized, as though that's supposed to just make it all better suddenly. She refused counseling, although at this point, I doubt it would make any kind of difference. Frankly, I haven't even processed all of this yet, as I was working all weekend. I'm not sure I would want to go to counseling either, or even forgive her at all for that matter. She's not being very remorseful, and she's badgering me for forgiveness, claiming my lack of trust is hurting her, as though trust is a switch that I can flip to turn off and on. She says she doesn't know what to do or say, because I won't believe her anyways, since she could have deleted or hidden whatever actually was on the phone by now. And honestly, I don't really know what to do either. I'm starting to doubt it's fixable given how she's been reacting to the entire thing, but I guess I'm still hoping since I haven't gotten any direct evidence of infidelity yet. My mind just boggles at whatever else could be so bad that she would prefer to blow up the relationship rather than just fess up and talk about what's happening. I'm not sure I even want to know at this point. Is there some way I can get her to understand what she needs to do to fix this? I'm honestly not sure, and I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, if she wasn't hiding anything, she wouldn't be running away to another family just to stay with them. She claims it's just to give you space, and she's begging for you to forgive her, literally because she's probably doing something behind your back and she doesn't want you to see the evidence of it. I think your hunch is 100% correct, and the way she's reacting is ridiculous. Any reasonable partner who's clearly going to be loyal to you would probably be like, "Oh yeah, look through my phone. Let me show you exactly what's happening." If she loved you, she would reassure you that no, she is not cheating. But instead, she snatched her phone away. She's been deleting messages from other men you've told her not to talk to. She's hiding something very clearly in her phone. Like, the way she's reacting to this entire situation is proof enough that something is not right, and your hunch is 100% correct. And worst of all, it doesn't sound like she wants to fix any of this. Instead of trying to fix it, she just ran away. And it doesn't matter if she's been unfaithful or not. At the bare minimum, it's probably like an emotional affair, but even that is so uncalled for. So hopefully you can find some kind of solution to this, because the way your wife is acting is incredibly sketchy, and this is all literally her fault. An entitled Karen acts incredibly rude and aggressive to me and my girlfriend on the bus, even going as far as to scream at me because my bag was in her way. So I decided to get revenge and get back at this Karen in the funniest way possible, and I've never been more satisfied in my life. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I were waiting for a bus ride to go to her hometown for a wedding. As you'd expect, we had 3 bags, and they were packed to the point where zipping the bag required you to sit on it. And this is especially true for my girlfriend's bag, as she was one of the bridesmaids. Before we boarded the bus, we had to wait for the passengers who had paid beforehand to reserve a seat. My girlfriend and I definitely did not do that ahead of time. We were in somewhat of a line, which allowed for the passengers who reserved seats to pass ahead of us. The line for unreserved seat passengers was essentially respected, except by this one entitled woman, who is the entitled Karen of this story. She arrived when the line was somewhat being formed and decided to stand next to us. As our turn to board was coming up, she quickly scooted in front of my girlfriend and looked forward, as if she was completely oblivious to the fact that she had done something that was traditionally frowned upon. My girlfriend was obviously quite annoyed and started to say out loud, "Well, that's a terrible thing to do. I can't believe this woman." But I was calm, as I had counted how many people had already boarded the bus, and there was still a good chance that we'd find seats together in the unreserved rows. So I really didn't think it would call for any type of confrontation. Still, I calmly responded by saying, "Let's be honest. We can't be surprised when terrible people do terrible things." Looking back, it was unnecessary, but I was also tired, and the bags were so heavy, so I was being a bit impatient. We finally sit down, and my girlfriend chose to sit in the 2 free seats behind this entitled Karen. Now, for me personally, I would have chosen the seats in front of her, and then slowly recline my seat back every few minutes so that she wouldn't notice my act of revenge. But as it turns out, getting a seat behind her turned out to be a better plan. It's important to note that the row this entitled Karen chose was the last row with an overhead shelf for bags. The shelf was a little longer in the front, so every person essentially had a space for their bag if they moved their bags a little towards the front of the bus. It's also important to mention that the shelf was essentially empty, and I could have placed another 5 bags next to ours if I wanted to. We finally hit the road and the entitled Karen is talking on the phone incredibly loudly, saying how she's going to visit her grandson, who is so sweet, but that he plays metal music in his room and she just can't stand the noise. After she finishes the call, she takes off her windbreaker and plans to put it above her seat. She finally sees that my bag is directly above her seat, and instead of moving her jacket 35 centimeters to the right on the shelf, or just setting her jacket on the empty seat beside her, she decides to confront me in an entitled tone. She says to me, "Excuse me, young man, but I can't put my jacket anywhere because of your fat bag being in the way." Now, I have to say I was bored, so I decided to act like this was a tragedy. I said back to her, "Oh no, what will we do? Maybe if we put our heads together, we can find a solution." When I said that, her face turned from shocked as she turned rabid with a grandma rage. She yelled back, "Well, don't you know that the shelf space is for the person directly below the seat?" I respond back by saying in a genuine tone, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I truly didn't know that was like an unspoken rule. So the space above your seat is only for you and the potential passenger next to you?" She responded back by saying, yes, it is. So please move it to your spot." And she said this in such a way which was very condescending. So I said to her, "Of course, right away." I then quickly get up, take my girlfriend's bag off the shelf, and place it on the seat where I was sitting next to her. I keep my bag in the exact same spot, and I plot myself right next to this old woman with a grin. The look on her face was absolutely priceless, as she was trying to understand what just happened. I smile at her, take my headphones out, and play some metal music way too loud so that she can definitely hear it. I don't even like metal music, but it was definitely worth it knowing she was annoyed the entire time. My girlfriend was sad I didn't sit next to her for the bus ride, but she ultimately agreed it was the best way to get back at this entitled Karen. That story's hilarious. First off, this entitled Karen should not have cut in line, and to do it so blatantly and obviously. But that in and of itself isn't too bad if you really think about it. What really would have set me off personally is having someone scream about my bag being in the way. The way she was talking to these people was just really inappropriate. But in that same notion, I think it's absolutely hilarious how the original poster got back at this entitled Karen. Sitting next to her would probably be the last thing I would want to do, but it obviously clearly worked, because not only was this entitled Karen not happy, but it also shut her up for the rest of the bus ride. So honestly, this is hilarious, and that entitled Karen definitely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My boyfriend went on a work trip without telling me that his new female coworker was also going to be there, while also failing to mention that he took her to dinner and bought a cute birthday gift just for her. And I am so confused over this sudden behavior, and I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of background, my partner ended up in a job with an unexpected amount of travel to visit different sites. He's been away maybe 2 out of 4 work weeks each month for the last few months, and this is Monday through Friday. I've explained how unhappy I am with the amount of time away, but accept it's a well-paid job, so it would be silly to refuse to go away and risk his job. And I can cope with it until he finds an equally paid job with little to no travel involved that he wants to do. The reason I don't like him being away so much are that I don't like being in the house on my own. There's also an increased workload while he's away. We run a small business alongside our full-time jobs, and we have a dog who's a bit of a handful. It is stressful for me when he goes away. There's a lot to do on my own, and I just don't sleep well. We've been together for 4 years with little work travel, and I wouldn't have encouraged him to apply for this job had I known the travel involved, especially when we have this dog and this business on top of our already demanding jobs. Long story short, his work trips already cause a little bit of tension occasionally. So anyways, a new girl started at his place of work, someone who will be taking over his work as he's being moved onto something else, even though it will still involve traveling. He's played her down a lot and says that she wouldn't commit to a date to come to the site this week to start the handover. This evening, I was struggling to get a hold of him, which was odd as he didn't mention he had any plans, and he usually responds pretty fast and will always answer his phone pretty much no matter what. We usually speak a lot while he's away since he's in the hotel on his own and I'm home alone. Tonight though, he didn't respond for a prolonged period of time. When he finally responded, he just said, "Sorry, I was eating," and then started talking about something else. I asked how come he didn't pick up, and he responded that he didn't realize his phone was ringing. It is usually kept on silent to his credit. It was at this point, with his responses being so far off his baseline, as well as some gut instinct kicking in, that I just bluntly asked him who he went to dinner with. And as I suspected, he didn't pick up because he was having dinner with the new girl at his hotel. And this is the same hotel that she is staying in. Now, this would not have made me worry if he he had just told me about it, which he normally would have. He would have sent me a text message saying, heading out for dinner with such and such, may not respond for a while, or mention that she'd bothered to turn up to the site in the first place and had booked the same hotel as he did. This didn't come up in any of our messages throughout the day. He claimed she turned up really late and he had no idea that she was coming, but I find this hard to believe when visiting a site she has never been to before. He'd also been sending me lots of messages just before he went silent, so there was plenty of time to let me know what was going on. There was a bit of tension about this. However, him not telling me wasn't the end of the world. Maybe it just slipped his mind. So after explaining how I felt, I said, let's just drop it. Let's get some sleep and move on, hoping I was just tired and would wake up feeling more relaxed about it. But I honestly couldn't sleep as I couldn't shake a feeling. Well, I suddenly transformed into a social media detective, and it turns out I'm pretty good at it. Guess who posted a picture of the cute birthday present from their coworker? And the item was one of the things that we make and sell through our small business. Now, the fact that these things occur doesn't worry me. However, the fact that he didn't tell me any of it really does bother me. I take personalized gifts in for coworkers as leaving presents, but I always tell him, and I'm usually tasked with the gift rather than deciding off my own back, and they're always part of a hamper of gifts from the team and work related. And they're also not coworkers I'm staying in a hotel with and having dinner with after maybe meeting them only once or twice. Even removing the fact that he didn't mention it, I could maybe understand a little better if they had actually worked together for some prolonged period of time. But as far as he told me, they've only met twice in the office, and this was maybe the third time that they've met. I've never been concerned with what he's up to while away before or his intentions. That is until tonight, and I really don't know what to think of the situation, and I seriously don't know what to do. A few questions kind of go through my mind first and foremost. If he didn't know that she was coming to the site, why did he have a gift ready to give to her? That seems very sketchy in my opinion. And sure, you've said it best. This guy knows for a fact to check in with you while he's away for work. But instead of doing that, he literally went on a date with this lady and basically kept it from you in the weirdest way possible. Like, come on, that is so inappropriate. So hopefully some kind of conversation can come of this, and he can come to the understanding that he messed up big time, and that these kinds of actions are absolutely not okay. My husband keeps sneaking out in the middle of the night, and I don't know what's going on or why he's doing this, and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title says, my husband keeps sneaking out in the middle of the night. For basically as long as I can remember, I've gotten up at around 4 o'clock in the morning or so, just to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and that's just how my body is. And lately, when I do so, I won't find my husband in bed. In fact, I can't find him anywhere. He does have pretty bad insomnia, and sometimes on really bad nights, I would find him in the living room watching TV or playing video games. Also, it's not every night. It's maybe every other night that he is sneaking out. I'm trying not to let it bother me, but this has been going on for about a month now, and I'm starting to get really annoyed as well as worried about where he's going and what he's doing at such weird hours of the night. It happened again the other night, and I stayed up until he decided to come home at about 6 o'clock. Mind you, I don't know how long exactly he was gone, just that he hadn't been there since about 4 o'clock in the morning. I admit I was pretty cranky and annoyed when he got home, and I asked him where he had been. He told me not to worry about it and to just let him go back to sleep. I kept pushing him though, and he said he just went out for a walk. I wasn't satisfied with that answer, but the conversation kept going back to the fact that he just wants to walk to burn any extra energy or just to clear his head when he can't sleep. So I decided just to drop it, as I was pretty tired and I had to be up in about an hour to go to work anyways. Well, it happened again tonight as well as this morning. I got up to go to the bathroom and I couldn't find my husband anywhere. Again, I was really annoyed, and I stayed up to see when he would get home. It was about 5:30 in the morning, so that's an improvement at least. When he got home, he looked so sleepy and climbed into bed, and without saying a word, I got out and took my pillow and blanket and I came to the couch, which is where I'm at right now. Now, I know it's petty to give him the silent treatment, but I'm frustrated and I just want to be by myself right now. I can even hear him snoring, so I guess his little walk worked out. I'm not sure what to do now. I'm exhausted, and honestly, I just want to know the truth. Should I confront him again about this? I'm not big on confrontation, but at the same time, I really want to know what's going on. What should I do? So this is a really sketchy situation, because for starters, if this guy has insomnia, then maybe he should start planning ahead of time to try and help himself get to sleep. Like maybe work out or go for a walk before going to bed, or something along those lines. That way you won't have to do it literally at like 3 to 4 in the morning, only to then worry your wife who's clearly trying to figure out what's going on. But in that same vein of thought, there really is no evidence of anything nefarious going on in this situation. Maybe he is literally just going for a walk walk and then coming back just to get to sleep. Like, is there any kind of evidence to suggest that maybe he's going out and doing something sketchy like cheating on you or going to a bar? Unless you can find any kind of evidence suggesting that that's even going on, in my opinion, it would be an awful idea to jump to any kind of conclusion. And yeah, I think you're right. Giving him the silent treatment is a really bad idea. It is incredibly petty, and it's not fair for him or anybody in the slightest. So I think an adult conversation about this really should be had, because leaving in the middle of the night like that is not normal. And I think you have every right to know what is going on. I think that my boyfriend is stealing from me and has been doing this for quite a while, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I met my boyfriend at work 1 year ago. We got into a relationship and quickly moved in together, mostly because I live with my mother and I needed to get away from her. The first month of us moving together was a bit hard financially for the both of us, especially because he was fired, and during the time he was looking for a job, I had to support both of us, but we got through that just fine. But I never hid my credit card or did anything like that because I didn't think I needed to, and sometimes I would even lend him money if he needed it. For example, him doing grocery shopping on days when I'm working. I noticed very early on strange transactions on my bank account, like Uber Eats orders, and these are things that I definitely didn't even saw or do. I even saw a transaction from a cigarette shop in front of our house. Even if we both smoke, the amounts don't match with the price of my cigarettes, and the transactions are often from days I didn't even go there. I confronted him about it, but he denied it, and even though I didn't really trust him, I let it slide because I didn't know what to do, and I don't have any real proof of him doing that. But more recently, I saw someone get $150 in cash from my card, and this is when I was working all day and he wasn't. This drove me crazy, and I looked for my card everywhere, and I found it in one of his vest pockets. I often take it, so I knew he probably put it there to say that I probably forgot it there when I'm sure I didn't. For now, I'm pretending I've lost my card. I didn't tell him that I found it, and I also noticed that he put my credit card on his Apple Pay wallet, even though I told him that I don't want him to. I really love him, but this event makes me doubt our relationship. There is a good thing associated with this, and that is that we live in a big home where I have my own bedroom. So if I do break up with him, for starters, I can keep my distance for a little bit, but I don't want that to happen. And one part of me hopes that it's not him. I just want him to tell me the truth. Should I insist until he tells me the truth? Or maybe it really wasn't him in the first place. What should I do? Honestly, it really does sound like he's stealing from you. Like seriously, this is the simplest solution to what's going on. Your boyfriend is literally stealing money from you and buying things off of your card and is all around just being a leech. That's not fair for you in the slightest, and I think you are in some serious denial. Like, of course it's him. Who else could possibly be doing this to you? And do you hear yourself as well? I really love him, but he's stealing from me. Whoops, let's stay together. Like, no, that's awful. If I was in your shoes, I would cancel my card because he is just gonna keep using your card on his Apple Wallet, and that's not fair for the hard-earned money that you earn at your job. You also should probably call your bank up and say, hey, I need to change all of my stuff. The PIN numbers, the card numbers, everything. And then hide your cards and maybe put them under lock and key, because this guy is obviously straight up stealing from you, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. My coworker is displaying concerning behaviors towards me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I have a coworker who we will call John. That's not his real name. And John is about 40 years old. I've known him for about 2 years, and this has been ever since I started working here. It's a small company, so there is no human resources department. I gently turned him down when he expressed interest in me when I began working there. He was suddenly everywhere, becoming my work husband, which is what he called himself. Always around, invited me to lunch and social events, and showed me all the ropes. He would text me after work all the time until I found out he was actually married with a child. I met him for coffee and told him gently that I wasn't interested, and I knew that he was married. He said he understood and that he had an open marriage, but he didn't want to lose me. Friends sent me screenshots of the lavish gifts he sent his wife that he posted on social media, which led me to figuring out that he was married. I cut contact with him for a few months and began dating. I was only cordial to him at work, and I never texted him back. He found out and began telling mutual friends that I was sleeping around and that I was used goods, if you know what I mean. At the same time, I caught him driving by my home a few times, as well as staring at me at work. I confronted him, and he claims it wasn't him and he was only joking. Mutual friends told me he constantly complains about having to see me and that I'm obsessed and wanted him, but he rejected me. I don't know what else to do. I've told him to leave me alone, and now I ignore him, but nothing is working. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. I feel like it's jealousy, but the difficult part for me is why he won't just let it go. What should I do? Honestly, talk to your boss. This is some creepy behavior. It doesn't matter that you turned him down. Your coworker should not be driving by your house as well as constantly staring at you at work. Like, that makes even me uncomfortable just reading it. Like, this guy is seriously a weirdo. And while yes, there is no HR department, there is still a head boss as well as an owner of this establishment. So I would first and foremost go talk to them. This guy is being a weirdo. There's no excuse for his behavior, and he is honestly heading straight for a restraining order because this is seriously creepy. This behavior is unacceptable, and you do not deserve to get treated like this. My husband is being overly friendly with a coworker and even lied to me at one point about a phone call he received from her in the past. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my husband and I have been married for almost 2 years now, and overall we have a good relationship. A couple of days ago, we both got really sick and stayed home. He got a phone call as we were both sitting on the couch and answered it. It was then that I heard a woman's voice. He got weird and took the call in the other room for like a minute. I asked him who it was and he lied and said it was his mom asking him how he was doing. His whole body language was weird and his face was flushed. So I left it, and when he fell asleep, I checked his call log just to see that the call was deleted. I then called his mom to ask if she had spoken to him recently, and she said no. I later confronted my husband about it, and he told me that it's his coworker that he works with. He found it weird that she was calling, and that's why he was acting weird. I asked him why he lied about it, and he mentioned that it was because he knows how I get with other women. I then told him not to lie to me. The lying makes me think that there's something going on. He's assured me that nothing is going on, and I honestly do believe him. I told him that if she's his coworker and calls him to check in on him while she knows he has a wife, it's weird. She doesn't understand the boundaries, or boundaries weren't clearly set up by him. I told him to be cordial but no over-friendliness, as there needs to be no confusion about his intentions or intentions in their friendship or even in their working relationship. Fast forward to today, and I see he texted her a nice happy birthday message. I don't know why I feel weird about this. I asked him not to be overly friendly or initiate anything. She is his coworker and nothing more. I mean, I don't text my coworkers a happy birthday message, and even if I did, my male coworkers wouldn't like that either. Maybe I'm just being insecure because she's an attractive woman. Am I overreacting and being annoyed by this? What should I do? Honestly, it kind of makes sense that you would get upset over this. He's texting a female coworker from work, and it seems like it's kind of going beyond what would normally be some kind of boundary setup. And it also sounds like he has not set boundaries with this lady in the slightest, mostly because it also sounds like he doesn't like confrontation. I mean, he lied to you about who he was talking to because he was afraid of how you would react. And I can bet in that same notion, he hasn't said anything to this woman because he doesn't want to upset her. And that is not fair for you specifically. Like, this is seriously not okay. And he needs to change that if he wants to see any kind of progress in your relationship. So hopefully he can set up some clear boundaries between him and his female coworker, because your husband is already married and there's no reason for him to be acting like this towards a female coworker. My entitled manager forces me to sit in a broken chair, thus causing it to collapse in front of all of us. He then went as far as to claim to corporate that I broke it on purpose, all with the intent of getting a new chair out of my paycheck. But I definitely wasn't going to take that sitting down, as I came back at my manager in a glorious way by shutting him down on the spot. Here's what happened. So several years ago, I worked in a group home helping people with mental illnesses. During the day, we had 2 to 3 staff working at a time. We would work with the clients, and then at the end of our shift, we would log what we did. There was one office and 3 computers in it. One day, I came in and the chair for one of the 3 desks was broken. It was obviously unsafe to sit in. I asked my coworker if anyone had reported this to our manager. My coworkers told me that our manager stated the chair was not broken, even though it was cracked and leaning to one side. I thought this was so ridiculous. So I took a picture of the chair and I sent it to my friends, and we all got a good laugh about the definitely not broken chair. The next day, I came into work and everything was fine. That is, until it was time to log everything in the computer. There were 3 of us, and now with only 2 usable desks, we had to take turns doing notes while the others would just stay there. Our manager came in and asked why one of us was not sitting there. We pointed out that the chair was not safe and we could not use the desk without it. As a side note, just before I was hired to work here, I had a serious medical problem in which for 9 months I was unable to eat solid food, and I had to lose so much weight. I was only about 80 pounds, and my recommended weight is about 140 pounds for my body type. I was getting better, and my manager and coworkers were completely unaware that this was the reason for my weight. My boss insisted that the chair could be used. He then told my other 2 coworkers that they were too fat, and that's why the chair broke in the first place. place. He stated that he wasn't going to buy any new office furniture until everyone in the office had lost weight because we were costing the company money by damaging the furniture. He explained that I was at a healthy weight even though I most certainly was not, and everyone should be more like me. To prove that this chair was safe and obesity was the problem, my boss asked me to demonstrate to my coworkers how an ideal employee can use this chair. My boss was expecting me to sit in the chair carefully and cautiously, since it really was broken. But you know what? I wouldn't be here if that's what happened. I plopped down in the chair and it broke in half instantly, and I straight up fell to the ground. I then pointed out to my boss that company policy required that he fill out an incident report due to my fall. The next day, my boss calls me into his office and shows me the incident report that he filled out. And this is when I find out that he told corporate that I had intentionally broken a usable chair. He went on to explain that corporate was very angry and demanded that he take the cost of a new chair out of my paycheck. I mentioned that he forgot to add a few details to his report, which I would be happy to fill corporate in on. The first being that the chair was indeed broken, and I had a picture from the day before the incident to prove that it was already broken. My boss said I was lying, but I showed him the photo and he went white. I further explained that he forgot to tell them that he ordered me to sit in the chair, despite several people mentioning it looked unsafe, and I had 2 witnesses to attest to that. I also mentioned that I felt corporate would love to know that he told his employees they were too fat for new chairs, and I had 2 witnesses to that statement. I got up and I stated that I would let corporate know now before I forgot. It was right about then that my boss started to panic, stating that he would not take the cost out of my paycheck and he would order new chairs, which we desperately needed for all the desks. So next time, maybe don't call my friends fat or try to push an unhealthy body image on everybody in the office. What a crazy situation. My first question would be, did the original poster tell corporate anyways? Like, if I was in their shoes, I know for a fact I would have. But the original poster went on to say that they didn't pursue this further. And they said that the reason why they didn't is because they were just a little bit too naive back in the day. But all in all, that is seriously crazy. That boss literally fat shamed half the office and then put you in a very unsafe situation. It was awfully brave of you to just plop down in that chair even though you know it was broken. It's also hilarious how he started to panic when you're like, oh wait, let me tell corporate what happened. I'll explain everything. And I bet he probably had you sit in that chair just to try and take the cost of the chair out of your paycheck. But regardless, that guy is super toxic, and I'm really glad for the original poster's sake that they don't work for this guy anymore. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My job asked me to make a business plan for their business, only for me to find out that they're embezzling money and vehicles big time, making me realize how corrupt this business truly is. And I've honestly never been happier to be fired and get away from a business in my life. Here's what happened. So many years ago, I was tasked with making a business plan for a women-owned and operated business in a low rural income area where English is not spoken. There was a big grant from outside the country that made this project happen, and a country-based non-government organization that basically managed the grant. Now, the business had been dependent on the grant for years. The idea was to use the business plan to make the business independent and self-sufficient overall, so the grant could then go to a new rural area and begin again with a new business employing new women. I worked for the non-government organization administering this grant. Now, I explained that I was not the best person to do this business plan because I don't speak the language, I have never owned a business, I don't have a business degree, nor have I ever taken a business course, and I don't have any experience or knowledge of what a business plan is. They insist that none of the above disqualify me from making a business plan for this project, which honestly is insane. I should also say that I didn't have the internet to help me out. The internet in this case was 3 long bus rides away and would require a stay overnight at a hotel where I would use an expensive internet cafe that had viruses and keystroke loggers and charge by the minute. This story did happen in the 90s after all, and this would all be on my dollar, so I didn't do it. I didn't have a car, and the town had one phone line with no outlet. It was just a piece of copper wired to an old phone, guarded by a guy who also reads all your mail. Phone calls were also very expensive. Now, when it came to making this basic plan, I imagined that a business plan assessed the efficiency of use of assets and also tracked and categorized all income and expenses. So that's basically where I started. I started asking questions and was asked to finish the plan. I explained that it was taking a little bit longer than expected because of, language barriers, but also a description of the grant would help. I got a pile of unorganized papers with only some of the papers in English, I found out that the grant purchased a truck to collect and deliver raw materials and finished products. There were no vehicles in the village. A bus came through, but no one owned a vehicle. No one had even seen the truck. Also, it said that the grant purchased the building of the business. However, in talking with the locals many times, using redundant terms and phrases to ensure I'm understanding what's happening, I learned that the building was being rented. I even met the owner who had no affiliation with the business. They literally just sat collecting rent money each month. This was really surprising because I was told by the non-government organization that the building was owned by the business. I imagined that somewhere there was someone in the capital city sitting on a fat stash of cash, enough to buy a house, and driving a free truck to their summer house with a pool. Eventually, it occurred to me that they picked me up to do the business plan because I wouldn't do a thorough job and find these discrepancies. They also would not expect me to report their embezzlement to the organization doing the embezzlement. However, when it came down to it, that is exactly what I did. I told the non-government organization that self-sufficiency would always be a long way off if the business was hampered by rent that was more than the collective monthly wages. I mentioned also that selling the truck might help as it appeared to not be used for the purposes listed in the grant. And with that in mind, I then sent in my business plan. Eventually, the country that provided the grant visited us. The missing truck just mysteriously showed up, and the ambassador person was surprised to see me in this rural village. Thankfully, they spoke English, and they asked if I lived there, and I told them yes. They asked if I knew what was going on, and I said, yes, I do. Now, the NGO person from the capital was there and overheard. They knew what I knew, and also knew that the ambassador would not love to hear about embezzlement, even though it's common in low-income areas with NGOs. And it's right about then that I lost my job. I never told the ambassador that money was misappropriated, and I believe that to do so would result in some consequences where I would be at a tremendous disadvantage in my country, and the ambassador would not be there to help me out. Also, the fact that the conversation ended there tells me that the ambassador was not at their first rodeo, and also probably knew that this was all 90% performance. I think he genuinely wanted to see some good come to the village, even if it didn't meet the level specified in the grant. I think him asking me the question, "Do you know what's going on around here?" was merely to see if I saw what he was seeing. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel proud of what I did because I probably could have turned in a crap business plan and they would have praised me for it. But I did exactly what I was told, even though it was difficult and incredibly challenging. And sure, I guess I'm missing the part where they face consequences of my compliance, but it felt good to let them know that they are not as sly as they thought they were. And I got out of a situation where I could have been partly blamed for corruption had I stuck around. This is actually a really funny story. Can you imagine being asked to give a business plan for something you have no experience in, only to find out the people you're working for are super corrupt? Like, that had to have been a scary realization. You look up and everybody's embezzling money as well as trucks. Like, what is happening? They don't actually own the building and they're just renting it? Is this entire business a facade? Like, come on. So if anything, getting fired from that organization was the best thing to happen to you. You don't want to be a part of that, not for a second. And I can totally understand where you're coming from, where you just keep your mouth shut and whistle past the graveyard. Because in some situations, especially when the people you work for and the people who are over the people you work for are not complying with obvious laws, it might be better not to find out what they could do to you if you ended up on their bad side. Today, I messed up by accidentally deleting my university's entire database, and I've never been more panicked over a mistake I've made in my life. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that this didn't happen today, but it happened last week when I was interning in my university's IT department. So I'm in my third year as a computer science major student, doing an internship to get some experience. Mostly, I've been doing some simple tech support and handling some basic issues. My supervisor asked me to clean up some old files on one of the servers just to try and free up some space. He left for a meeting and I just got to work. Now, I know my way around Linux and servers. I mean, I thought this would be easy. As I was deleting old log files and backups, I accidentally made a typo into the wrong directory. And even though I instantly realized my mistake, it was too late. I had just wiped out every single file on the main database server. And right at that moment, my panic set in. 5 years of records, course materials, enrollment information, you name it, it was gone in 10 seconds of stupidity. I broke out into a cold sweat. I was paralyzed, not knowing what to do. The server was redundant, so data could be restored from backups, but those were in the hands of another department. I had to confess to my supervisor what just happened. He turned ghostly white. He started swearing, but then focused on contacting the backup administration to start an emergency restoration. I spent the rest of the week helping get data back online, as well as apologizing profusely. At the end of my internship, my supervisor said I caused some of the most dramatic on-the-job experience he's ever witnessed. But he did appreciate how I owned up to my mistakes and ended up helping him fix it in the end. While they'll be double-checking any commands I enter from now on, I'm still thankfully welcome back again the next term. So what's the lesson here? Be very careful when wielding powerful commands, especially on production servers. That typo will literally haunt me for the rest of my life. I can't imagine being an intern and messing up that badly. That would honestly really scare me. I don't think I would ever want to touch a computer again after that. I mean, here you are, a third-year student, and you're just trying to get credits as well as experience towards your future job. Like, one day this could be you handling all this information. So wiping out the entire database has got to be a traumatic thing, but you know what? It taught you a very valuable lesson in watching what you type into those servers. My manager demands that I keep washing our rice at our restaurant until the water runs clear, so I decide to maliciously comply and put this micromanaging manager in her place. Here's what happened. Years ago, I was a cook at a well-known fast casual restaurant known for their large burritos and charging extra guacamole. I think we all know what I'm talking about. I worked hard because the place was very understaffed given the number of customers that came in. Management was understanding when we had to cut corners just to make sure people did not wait for their food. One of the rules we had to follow before cooking the rice was to rinse the raw rice 3 times until the water runs clear. Is that a vague request? Yeah, I know. How clear cut is it? What if after 3 rinses, the water is not clear? 3 times and runs clear? Or 3 times or it runs clear? Who knows? I didn't ask. Most of the time we would give the rice 1 or 2 rinses before throwing it into the cooker. Never had any problems with customers complaining about it, and we never ran out of rice. Since there were never any problems, management did not care. Everybody was happy. That is, until one day, Miss Manager decides it's time to enforce every single rule exactly. And we're all not really sure why. To get to the position she was in, she knew how to do all the individual tasks in the kitchen, so she already knew the rules. However, she did not know how to conduct the symphony of the dozens of simultaneous tasks at the speed and accuracy required to keep the customers moving and to never burn anything. But you know what? I did. She did not know which corners were okay to cut and which ones were not. But guess what? I knew exactly what corners to cut. As I was getting ready for my busy shift, the kitchen was not in busy mode yet. I am rinsing rice and Miss Manager approaches me. Make sure to rinse the rice until the water runs clear. I look at her and I respond, I always do. She knew I was lying, but she knew why. She knew that it would take longer to make the rice, but I was the only one who could make sure the rice never runs out. Her life would be a nightmare if we ran out of rice. Now, she had a chance to just let it go, but she did not. Sir, I know you don't follow that rule. Keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear, and before you put this rice in the cooker, come find me and show me that it runs clear. I looked at her with a straight face and I replied, keep rinsing the rice until the water runs clear? Hey, you got it. So I begin. I fill the pot of rice with water, I agitate the rice, pull out the perforated part of the pot, and dump out all of the cloudy water. After 3 times, the water is still resembling water skim milk. I look up and she is watching. She asks me, does the water look clear to you? It was obviously rhetorical. So I think, okay, I see how it is. So I start rinsing again. Satisfied, she walks away. I then continue repeating the process. A while goes by, and yes, I am counting the number of times. The long grains of rice are breaking apart, and the entire pot is turning into a strange, mushy mixture of white rice. Given the time I'm taking on this dumb task, everything else that needs to get started in the kitchen is falling behind. Finally, Miss Manager appears in the kitchen again. You're still rinsing rice? The timing was perfect. I dump out the water in front of her and I ask her, does that water look clear to you? As I dump out the precursor to slightly watered down horchata, she softly says, no. I then step away from the sink. How many times do you think I've been rinsing this rice? She then answers by saying 7. I say, no, try 37. Now let me tell you something. I wasn't joking. I have rinsed this rice 37 times at this point, and the water is not running clear. So I say to her, should I continue? She looks at the rice, knows that it's unusable, and that she has lost the fight. On one hand, she cannot tell me to keep going because the ground up rice was only a few rinses and a cook away from becoming literally grits. On the other hand, she cannot tell me to stop rinsing because then she would be violating one of her sacred rice rinsing commandments. Additionally, she cannot fire me. Otherwise, the store could not open. She scheduled me to work the entire day, and she sure knows that she cannot do what I do in the kitchen. Fine then, go back in there and make sure we're ready when it's time to open. And when she says that, I just laugh to myself as I went back to work knowing knowing that I had one. Yeah, the manager in this story was being super obnoxious. Like they were clearly on some kind of power trip and they just wanted to try and boss people around and be like, no, you have to do it my way. Like, come on, get a grip. It's also really comical that they were trying to micromanage this guy, even though apparently he was the guy who knew how to do everything around the store. So good for the original poster for maliciously complying and putting this manager in their place. They were being super obnoxious and honestly, they kind of had it coming. My mom went above and beyond to try and get my sister a job, but instead of working, she would just stand there crying, simply because she thought this job was too far below her and she didn't want to do something so menial. And as a result, my mom had to fire her own daughter simply because she refused to work. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that my mom has gotten my sister at least 2 jobs. Once at her former career, where they had my sister answering phones as well as other things. She was there for a few months and was a terrible employee from what little I know, as I don't have the specifics. What I do know is she quit on her own before she could be fired. My mom once asked her boss hypothetically if my sister could come back to work in the warehouse, and she got a very firm no from them. Now, just yesterday, I found out something I didn't know for like 17 years. My mom, back in about 2005, took on a seasonal job in a chocolate candy shop where they made fancy box chocolates and stuff along those lines. She, like a boss, completely restructured their systems for shipping and sales, because that's the kind of work she'd been doing for over a decade by that point. The demand for seasonal employees was also very high, so they hired people for just a few months at a time. My mom took the job because she wanted a break from her career after getting burned out, but still went back to said career the following year since she couldn't find better employment. My sister, however, had no job and was living off her boyfriend at the time, so our mom got her a job in the chocolate shop washing dishes. But here's the thing, instead of doing dishes, my sister just stood in front of the sink crying for 2 hours. It got so bad that my mom had to literally be the one to fire my sister and send her out the door. Then she had to do those dishes herself. For the record, my sister was not forced into this. She needed a job desperately, but didn't want to do something so menial. She spent more times jobless and then just ended up as a housewife until 2016. For years, my sister told me that she had quit that job, and others told me she couldn't handle the demands of the job. But this is the first time I'm hearing that she literally didn't even attempt to do the job. I mean, really, she was about 20 to 21 years old at the time. She could have done it. Looking back, my mom regrets not offering me the job instead. She stuck her neck out for my sister, only for a scythe to come down and try and take it off. And this explains why she never helped her get another job ever again. I gotta be honest, I will do this for somebody once, but if they burn me in the way that this sister burned their mother, then I will never help them with anything ever again. I'm a big believer that yes, you can lead a horse to water, but that horse better learn how to drink, because there's no way I'm gonna share my network or put my neck on the line for someone who's not going to take it seriously. I've run into that a lot personally in my life, so I completely understand where this original poster's mom is coming from. It's also really weird for them to sit there and cry for 2 hours instead of just doing your work. Like seriously, this job is not the end-all be-all of jobs. You're not gonna work there your entire life. It's just to get you on your feet so you then can get your own job that you really do enjoy. Because trust me, I've been there as well, where I've experienced bad jobs and I thought to myself, this can't be the rest of my life. I don't want to do this forever. This job sucks. And the best part about it is that you don't have to do those jobs forever. Like it really can be a temporary thing, if not just to fill up your resume so you have something to show for yourself. It's also really insulting because you know what? Someone else who really does need that job probably could have stepped in and done that job no problem. Like why would you agree to a job that you just don't want to do any work at? And also, your mom literally worked there. You really think she's not going to pull the nepotism card and be like, okay, you've learned a lot, let's move you up the chain a little bit. Like you had a fantastic possible in for getting higher up in the food chain, as well as making more money than just washing dishes. So I don't blame your mom for ever getting her a job again, because she was clearly just going to take it for granted. An entitled Karen thinks I'm lying that I just had knee surgery, claiming that I'm faking it just so I can get to ride in the wheelchair at the store we're in. But once I started taking my bandages off and showing her my post-surgery knee, she backtracked everything she said and eventually ran out the store. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, this happened about 10 years ago. I was 22 at the time, and I had to have knee surgery to clear out some shredded cartilage about a week after my birthday. This story takes place 3 days after surgery. My mom, who's a nurse, and this will be important later, as well as my husband, who was my boyfriend of 2 years at the time, and my best friend, decided to take me shopping to try and get my mind off the surgery and to pick up some craft supplies so I wouldn't be bored while off off work. I should mention it was an orthopedic surgery, so I didn't need to use crutches if I didn't feel the need, and I should be walking some. When we got to the craft store, which was not our first stop, my husband and best friend made me use one of the store wheelchairs. I was being stubborn because I could still walk, just not very fast or for very long without breaks. Since I really didn't want to be in that chair, my husband and friend decided to make a game out of it. They would do stuff like who can push me the fastest. Now, you might think we are wrong, but let me state this was in the middle of the day on a Monday, so the store was not busy, and my husband and best friend would check the aisle to make sure that the coast was clear. Literally nobody was being bothered. After one of the speeding events, I was looking at something in an aisle, and my mom pulled my husband and best friend away to go look at something. It was something she thought I would like, and she wanted it to be a surprise. Well, I decided I didn't want whatever it was I was looking at, so I gently stood up and I put it back on the shelf. And this is right when the entitled Karen of this story just suddenly appears. This Karen appears out of nowhere, berating me for using the wheelchair as a toy, and how there are people who actually need it. I look up and I calmly explain that I just had surgery, and that is why I'm using the wheelchair. She then goes on and on. She starts saying, "I saw what your friends were doing, and you are obviously lying." I explained that they were trying to make me feel better, and I will tell them to push me normally from now on. But this did not appease this stupid entitled Karen, as she still kept berating me. At this point, I just roll up my pant leg, and I show her the compression bandages that I'm still wearing. She goes on, saying, "That means nothing. I could have just wrapped my knee up as an excuse, just in case we were caught. I bet the other people with you also have their knees wrapped." My group eventually returns at this point and says the same thing as me, but the Karen is still not having it and claims that we're just lying. I then look at my mom and I ask if I can take off my bandages, as they were supposed to be removed the next day. She says I really shouldn't, but she could rewrap it for me if need be. At this point, I take off the bandages before anyone can stop me, showing this stupid entitled Karen my knee in all its post-surgery glory. It was bruised and swollen right at the incision site, and you could even still see the iodine on my skin. This entitled Karen's face goes white, and she looks like she's going to be sick. She then starts stammering about how it didn't need to go this far. As my mom is rewrapping my knee, scalding me and the Karen under her breath, I look at the Karen and I say to her, "What else did you want me to do? I told you and they told you. I even showed you the bandages. You wouldn't get off your high horse and insisted that I was lying." At this point, a staff member comes to check if we need anything, and the entitled Karen runs away and scurries for the door. After that, we had a pleasant rest of our day and even stopped for ice cream on the way home. How obnoxious is that lady? The entitled Karen of this story was super rude. I mean, for starters, it's literally none of her business what they were doing. If they were running up and down the aisles with that wheelchair, literally just trying to have some fun, is it really bothering you? The answer to that, by the way, is no. They were literally just having fun and spending time together. Just because people are having fun doesn't mean you have the right to try and spoil that fun, especially when it's harmless fun. Nobody was getting hurt. Nobody did anything wrong. You, the entitled Karen, just didn't like that people were laughing and enjoying their lives, which is clearly something you struggle to do. So good for you for putting this entitled Karen in her place. She clearly was just on a power trip, and she absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My sister has been living with my husband and I for a while now, and I seriously don't feel like it's working out. And now I feel extremely guilty and overwhelmed, and I seriously don't know what to do. So my husband and I live with my sister, and I don't think it's working out, and I do feel extremely guilty. To give you some background from the beginning, I was on a family trip last year with my sister, my husband, and my dad. My sister had a huge seizure, and we learned that she has brain cancer. This was the worst time of my life, and the thought of losing my sister was too much to bear, as we are extremely close. My husband, who was then my fiance, as well as myself, decided to move back to the US from England and help with everything she was going through. Packing all her things, moving out to Denver, flying around the country for doctors. It was a horrible time and was so scary. We were told it was terminal and inoperable. Fast forward to last year, and it's still terminal and still inoperable. But we've gotten a lot more information and realized she should be with us for a long time to come. At least we hope so. We're all living in a house together, and I thought things were fine. But slowly she has begun opening up to me about how she feels like a loser, feels uncomfortable living with me and my husband, and wants to have her own friends. I completely understand, and it breaks my heart to hear this. But honestly, things have just gotten so tense. She's extremely OCD about how things things are arranged in my house. Okay, that's fine, but the way she goes about things has just been so rude to both me and my husband. There's been a lot of things that I've allowed in the past for fear that she wouldn't want a relationship with me, but I've been going through a lot of therapy and learning to try and establish boundaries for myself. This recently came to a head over something very minuscule. It was literally just a dish mat I bought, and I didn't ask her if it was okay, and she got extremely upset with me, and it has turned into a 5-day silent treatment from her. I could go into detail, but long story short is that I'm afraid us living together is going to tarnish the relationship beyond repair, and I don't know how to get through to her that I'm not judging her. I just don't want to be treated with disrespect. She asked me what she could do differently, and I told her I had honestly lost patience and want to just have her guarantee that she will still love me no matter what, but that I think she does need to move out. I feel such extreme guilt, and I can't tell if I just misinterpreted everything. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't want her to feel abandoned, but I can't continue to live in this state of shame and anxiety, and I really feel some distance would help all of us. Does anyone have any advice on how to handle this with love? I'm scared she will bottle things up and decide to resent me forever. What should I do? Your sister is being very disrespectful to you in your home, and in my opinion, I don't think there's any reason why you should feel guilty about establishing boundaries, because that's what this is about. She is clearly overstepping what's going on in this house, and she is going far beyond what is acceptable. And you know what? She's even mentioned that, hey, I don't want to live in this house anymore. She wants to have some kind of independence, her own friends, as well as many other things. And I completely understand where she's coming from. And it kind of sounds like you both want the same thing. I'm sure you would feel a lot happier with some space and some distance from her. And I don't think this is you losing your patience. Like, really, I don't. You're both adults. You're both in your 30s. And I think this is a conversation that you absolutely can have. And in that same vein of thought, she absolutely needs to understand that her attitude and demeanor and the hostility that she's instilling in that house is completely inappropriate. So I think having an honest conversation that's obviously gauged towards how you know your sister would probably do both of you some really good. She clearly wants to move out, and it sounds like you could use some space from your sister. An entitled mom and her kid tried to invade an adults-only part of a resort, but I simply wasn't having it since I didn't want my vacation ruined by them. So I told the attendants that they need to leave, and thankfully they were escorted off the property. Here's what happened. So my husband and I are currently vacationing at a 5-star hotel. There are 2 different pools, one for kids and families and the other Serenity quiet one for just adults. You have to be 21 years of age or older, and trust me, it's enforced. Both of the pools are very clearly marked as such by a large sign placed around the perimeters of each of them. We have been here for a few days, and it has been literal paradise. We have not run into many families or kids, and those that we did see were exceptionally well behaved, and they were all well attended to by their parents. Well, that is until today. We went to the adult pool and got set up on 2 chairs. The pool was in front of us, and the hot tub was behind us. It was a tad cold, so we ventured over to the hot tub, where we saw a kid about 7 years old playing with a lot of Star Wars toys on the steps. Call me a Karen, I don't really care, but this really set me off. We came to this resort specifically because of the 2 very separate pools with enforced rules. I want to relax. I don't want to feel like hearing kids screaming on my vacation. I went over to the attendant stand and I asked if the hot tub was for families, and if so, I wanted to know if there was one that was adults only and where I could find that. I knew the answer, but I just didn't want to come across as too aggressive. I was told that the hot tub was indeed for adults only, so I proceeded to tell both the pool attendants that there was a child in the hot tub and I didn't know if his parents were nearby. Now, when the pool attendants heard this, they basically said, "Oh no, that's not happening." They then very quickly walked over to the hot tub and told a woman who was apparently their mother that the child was absolutely not supposed to be there and they needed to leave. So the child was told to get out, and then the crying and screaming ensued, and he and the mom then just sat on the chairs. But that's when it gets a little bit better. After about 5 to 10 minutes, they were still sitting on the chairs in the adult area, and again, the attendant came over and informed them that the area was adults only and they're not even allowed to sit there, even if they're not actively using the hot tub. Well, the entitled mother of this story was upset. She angrily packed up her stuff, and the both of them were ushered out of the adults area. I suspect they were there because the kids' pool area was super busy, and the entitled mother didn't want to deal with the other kids hogging all the chairs. We ended up tipping the attendants generously on the way out, and we are planning our next vacation here. The best part about all of this is that this particular hotel has a kids program all day. It's basically like a kids club, and the kids and family pool is actually much bigger, and it's a lot nicer than the adults pool. It also has kids water water attractions, like ones you would see at a splash pad, a huge water bucket that spills water, fountains, bubblers, you name it. Why would you not want to be over there? And to answer anybody's questions of what if the child is neurodivergent and has sensory issues, well, honestly, I don't care. If the kid's overstimulated, he can be taken back to the hotel room for some quiet time, or literally anywhere else on the resort that is open and available to him. I also have sensory issues due to cancer treatment, and I'm not about to sit there and deal with someone else's poor planning. It's not my problem while I'm on vacation, especially while there are multiple outlets and accommodations for children and literally only one for adults. You know what? If I was in that kind of situation and I spent all this money to enjoy my vacation and I had some kind of exclusive access to a specific part of this resort, I would not want some stupid kid coming over and trying to ruin that. And the entitled mom in this story and her kid absolutely should not have even been over there. Literally, from what's described, there's a lot of things over there that the kid would enjoy. There's no reason they couldn't go over there and have a good time. So honestly, I don't think the original poster was being a Karen. They were seriously just trying to preserve their vacation, and they didn't want some annoying kid over there trying to ruin it. My boyfriend had 2 girlfriends the entirety of our relationship, and I feel so absolutely betrayed, and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I was originally seeing my boyfriend for a few weeks in May of 2019, and this is right about when he blocked me abruptly. I was upset at the time, but I moved on until I saw him on a dating app in March of 2020. We were together from then, taking a while for the girlfriend status, but doing everything a relationship was until then. From 2016 to 2020, he lived in a city over an hour away from the hometown we're both from. I found out during our talking stage in 2020 that he had gotten another girlfriend after he blocked me from approximately July 2019 all the way until January 2020. This was hard at the time, but I got over it. He moved home in March of 2020, hence why I found him in an online app. Over our relationship, he continued to visit the city he used to live in every few weeks just to see friends. Our relationship in our hometown was quite happy. All his friends in our hometown knew we were together, all my friends knew, and he had met my extended family, stayed here every week, went for dates, holidays, and every single thing a normal couple does. The only problem that existed was that he would not introduce me to his family, which came to a serious discussion after about 3 years of our relationship. He only lived approximately 15 minutes from my house. His reasoning was having severe anxiety over the matter, but I believed him, as he supposedly went to therapy and took anxiety medication. I believed this was coming soon, and it was the only thing missing from our relationship. I eventually found out last night that he had another girlfriend during our relationship in the city he used to live in. This girl was different to the girl he originally dated. The reason he would not introduce me to his family is because he introduced her approximately a year ago. One of his friends from home followed this secret girlfriend from Dublin and pieced together he had another relationship. He also went on holidays with her, had her stay in his house, and did everything he did with me but with her. I contacted his family, and they said he always said I was just a friend, and that this other girl was his only girlfriend. I contacted his other girlfriend, and she immediately blocked me. I can't believe she doesn't want the same truth I so desperately seek. He continues to lie to me and say that she is just a friend, but I'm not stupid, and I know my relationship is over, but it breaks my heart to think that he may have a happily ever after with her if she believes his lies. He lived a double life, having everyone in our hometown except for his family know that we are together, having everyone he knew in the other city know the other girl was his girlfriend. I'm at a loss. I was the other woman. I spent 3 years of my life on someone who had 2 full serious relationships. He never slipped up once, never called me the wrong name, never let a notification appear on his phone from her. I'm honestly blown away, and I seriously don't know what to do. Well, I think first and foremost, my main question is, are you still with this guy? Please tell me you've broken up with him. But the original poster goes on to say, yes, they have broken up with them. And honestly, there's no happily ever after in this kind of situation. Your boyfriend sucks. He was cheating on you and wasting your life. Like seriously, this is some really good news to find out that he is not faithful. You don't need this in your life. I mean, talk about a get out of jail free card. Like, oh my gosh, can you imagine dealing with this? Can you imagine always being up against that barrier of thinking like, okay, why doesn't my boyfriend want to introduce me to his family? But now at least you know that this guy's a scumbag, and hopefully his other girlfriend will finally come to her senses and realize that he is probably playing her with another woman that she might not even know about. I'm concerned about my girlfriend's new friend from work, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my partner and I have been together for 4.5 years. We have lived together most of that, so we're very close. We have a good relationship, and we're currently looking at buying our own place. Last week, she was away from Monday through Friday for a work trip. She works in education, and it was a trip leading 20 to 30 students on a field course with other members of staff. Our communication was much lower than it usually is when she is away, but I do know that it was a very busy and hectic week. Since she came back, she has mentioned a new friend a few times, who she met on the trip. He also has a long-term girlfriend, and they've been together for approximately 5 years. This friend works at the same institution, though in a different building across town. My girlfriend occasionally has to work at this building, but it has been quite rare in the past. This week, she has been there more than normal, and she has had good reasons to be there when I've asked about it, but it's still been a departure from the ordinary. I know that there was some kind of medical emergency on the trip that meant the two of them were up until 5 a.m. helping a student, and it was a horrible experience all around with absolutely no romantic undertones. But a part of me thinks that something like that will have cemented a bond and a friendship between the two of them, and maybe that's an unfair statement. I've also noticed her texting him a few times this week. Not excessive, but it is pretty limited. After last week, they don't have any work together, so this is nothing about work, and they are literally just texting as friends. She hasn't been secretive about it or anything like that, and has told me when I've asked her what she's laughing at when looking at her phone. They've sent a couple of quite old photos of themselves that fit a joke that they were having, but it's right about then that alarm bells started ringing. Later today, he is coming to her building, and they're going to go swimming in the sea after work. This is a very common thing here, particularly in the circles that we are in, so it's not quite as niche as it sounds, but it is something my partner has wanted to do for a while, but hasn't gotten around to it yet. They're also going to have pizza afterwards. This morning, I mentioned to her that I'm not entirely comfortable, and I'm a bit suspicious of this friend. She was very sympathetic and loving, explaining that I'm seeing something that simply isn't there, and she states that she loves me and that we're currently viewing houses together, meaning that she wants to live with me. I did feel a bit better at the time, but I really can't shake this bad feeling. She asked if I wanted to come swimming and go for pizza afterwards as well, but I couldn't make it due to other commitments. They might bring the pizza back here instead, so there has been an offer to include me in some kind of way. She has other male friends, and I've never had any problem before, but all of these things combined seemed like so many red flags coming up all at once. I trust and believe her 100%, and at the same time though, I feel like this could really be an awful thing. Again, I believe her when she says this is 100% platonic, but I do feel like maybe she's enjoying this attention from someone new. I'm not sure what I'm looking for by posting this. Maybe just trying to get all my thoughts out and maybe have a more in-depth talk with my partner later on. What should I do? I mean, honestly, from what you've described, it does sound pretty innocent. For the most part, it really does seem like your girlfriend is open to you being involved in whatever's going on here. First and foremost, she expressed that she loves you and that yes, you're looking for a place to live together in. And she's also invited you to go swimming and get pizza afterwards. And there's also a chance that they could bring the pizza back to your place. Like seriously, I don't think there's anything nefarious going on here. And I don't think it would be appropriate to make any kind of assumptions about what is or isn't happening. And sure, I totally get where you're coming from. There's a male coworker that's giving her a lot of attention, and it seems like she's spending more time talking to him than she is talking to you. And that definitely warrants some kind of conversation between the two of you, absolutely. It sounds like the two of you have a really good thing going together, and from the sounds of it, it really seems like you can actually talk to each other and have some kind of adult conversation. That is really good in my opinion. So maybe going about your plan of saying, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation about this might be the best thing for the both of you. It will probably help her explain what's exactly going on, but it also will give you a chance to get everything off your chest and express any kind of concerns you have with this guy. It sounds like the two of you are also open enough where she might even let you read some of the text messages. And maybe the next time any of these group outings come along, maybe make sure you have the time to go with her just to see how everything is going. But in my opinion, you have every right to be concerned. Right now, it does seem innocent, but it could easily go at a rapid pace and change into something that it absolutely should not be. So having this conversation would really be a good idea. It will hopefully help you dispel any of your fears of what's going on, and if anything, it can help you establish boundaries of what is okay and what is not okay. An entitled Karen tries to steal a bunch of plants from our shop, claiming that she deserves them as some kind of compensation for having an unpleasant experience at our store. But in the end, this entitled Karen runs off terrified, worried that we might have actually called the police on her when a random cop car drives by our store. Here's what happened. So this was my first encounter with a Karen. So for context, my mom owns a plant shop, and I I help around the store occasionally. We've had all sorts of entitled guests, as well as not so bright guests. We've even had customers come in and ask for a green plant with leaves, but this entitled Karen tips the scales all the way. So I'm out front putting plants up, as well as decorations around the front entrance as we do every day. And then a wild Karen appears. I hear this loud scraping sound from behind me. I look over to see this large older lady with gray hair and a black shirt with flowers moving the large concrete potted plant that had been permanently placed there. This potted plant wasn't easy to move. The concrete pot alone was a meter or so tall and had a gross weight of around 45 kilos. She was shoving this thing with all of her might when I walk up to her, and I ask her what she thinks that she's doing. She turns to me and says, "This annoying thing was obstructing the sidewalk and it needs to be moved." For starters, it was not obstructing anything. I tell her to please leave the plant alone as it's not her property, but she literally just keeps ignoring me and she keeps moving the plant. So having done everything I could do on my end, I go to my mom, who is the manager of the store. But by the time we're out in the front, she has stopped moving the plant and is now loading up her car with our plants from the front along with other things. My mom storms up to her and asked her what in the world she was doing. The entitled Karen turns over with a face that's red as a tomato. She says to my mom, "Since you had the audacity to block the sidewalk with your garbage, I should be compensated with free plants." My mom had just about had it and starts unloading our plants from her car. This entitled Karen starts screaming, demanding that we keep our hands off of her stuff. She said that she would call the police and press charges for theft, but that's right about when I chimed in and said, "Actually, we have security footage of you stealing from our store, and if you do not leave now, we will call the police." The entitled Karen was fuming when we told her that, muttering something underneath her breath that was incomprehensible. We hadn't actually called the police yet, but by sheer random chance, a police car happened to drive by the store, and the Karen's face turned from red all the way to white as the blood drained from her face. She had actually thought that we had called the police. It was right about then that she hopped into her car and sped in the opposite direction of the police car. And the funniest part about it is that the police car didn't even notice her. And thankfully, we haven't seen this entitled Karen ever since. Oh wow, there's so much to unpack here. This entitled Karen not only was annoyed by something that was probably just set up for decorations, but she also thought she was justified to literally start taking products from this store. Like she's just taking things and putting it in her car, claiming some kind of compensation for her being bothered. Like, no, that is not how life works. Just because you're bothered by something being in the way doesn't mean you get to steal from the store that it happens to be in front of. Like, that's insane. That is literally how you end up in jail. And the chances of a cop car driving by at that very moment is so funny. That is the kind of stroke of luck that you really look for, especially if you're the original poster. They really got lucky in that regard, and it was exactly what they needed to try and chase this Karen off. Because this Karen was absolutely in the wrong, and she had no right to start stealing plants from your shop. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My ex-boyfriend demands all of his stuff back from my house after we break up, and because I was feeling petty, I made sure to include all the beer bottles and beer cans that he was hiding in the room just to prove a point that no, he didn't stop drinking, and yes, this is the reason we broke up. And I've never been more satisfied by anything I've ever done in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, my last relationship was beyond bad. He was all sorts of awful and controlling. At one point, I had the strength to break up with him, but then we got back together after we discussed some things. It was stupid, I know, but we were in love and all that. Well, anyways, one of the things we agreed on was that he would stop drinking alcohol because he was beyond crazy aggressive when he drank, and I wanted to support his sobriety. This is really important. Fast forward about 8 months or so, and we got into a huge fight, and I not only broke up with him, I kicked him out of the house and told him he wasn't ever allowed back inside ever again. We had been living together for over a year at this point, so his mom got in touch with me about getting his stuff back. While on the phone with her, I could hear him in the background. He was saying, "Make sure they get everything I own or bought. I want it all back." Apparently, even wanting stuff he gifted me back as well. But honestly, I didn't care. I was happy to get rid of anything related to him. While cleaning our room up and gathering everything, I started to come across numerous bottles and cans of alcohol. It seems he had been drinking again for a while and was hiding the evidence in the room. I mean, he was hiding them under the bed, in his guitar case, rolled up in some clothing, in some old backpacks of mine, and so on and so forth. He had said that he wanted everything of his, beverages, so any bottle and a few unopened cans I found went straight into one of the garbage bags full of his stuff. By the time I had gathered everything up, I had 3 bags of stuff, and one was basically all just the alcohol. Dropping them off was so satisfying. He actually called me moments after I left his parents' place, ranting about how petty and immature I was being. What was my response, you might ask? I said to him, well, you wanted all your stuff back, and those definitely aren't mine. Plus, I figured you'd need to probably drink to deal with the breakup. I promptly ended the phone call and I blocked him on everything. And the best part about it is that the bottles and cans were all left as is. They were all closed and such, because I knew that if I put empty cans inside that bag and damaged his things, that would cause so many issues, and I honestly just wanted him out of my life. And this is easily one of the most satisfying things I have ever done. Well, that is definitely one way to get revenge on somebody you broke up with. It sounds like your ex-boyfriend was incredibly toxic, and worst of all, he was drinking behind your back. That is honestly so awful, and you did not deserve that. Like, at some point, he has to know that his drinking is the problem. Not you, not any other circumstance. Literally, it's his drinking. And you would think that he would try to make some kind of effort to fix that, but no. He fell back on old habits and then became his old aggressive self all over again. So good for you for not only putting him in his place, but also getting some wonderful petty revenge. So hopefully the bags of alcohol will help him see that he has a problem. And best of all, he is no longer your problem. My managers demand that I don't put ugly price labels on our food, demanding that I wait for the proper labels from corporate. So I decided to maliciously comply, and as a result, over $3,000 worth of produce went bad in our freezers, and it was honestly worth it to watch them get so angry over their own mistake. Here's what happened. So I used to work for a small, locally owned supermarket chain with a small level of bureaucracy and a high focus on getting stuff sold. After a few years, we were taken over by a national chain, which introduced more bureaucracy, where emails and phone calls from the bottom to the top would be lost to the ether and left unanswered. Their focus was highly on image, with staff at head office who seemingly worked to ensure that similar sized products sat next to each other on each shelf so that it looked nice. They also changed the shop's managers' incentives. Their bonuses were the operating budget of their store minus wages, expenses, and written off stock. So obviously we were now operating on a shoestring budget, so the manager got as much money as they could. Before the takeover, we had an award-winning butcher department that worked with local farms and catered to customer requests. The new firm immediately closed the counter and filled freezers full of pre-packed sliced meats instead that were frequently discounted to prevent them from going into the garbage. One time, we received a dozen cases of a high-end cut of meat, way more than we would usually stock of an affordable packet, and therefore we were at risk of running past its sell date and then eventually being thrown out. As it was a new product, we didn't have a price label for it. After waiting a weekend for the system to update, I emailed the head office for a label and filled the freezer, using a pricing gun left over from the takeover to label each item individually. Now, we had sold a few by the time I came back in the following week, but was pulled aside by the management. The area manager had been in to inspect the shop and was horrified by the ugly labels and demanded that they be taken off the shelves until a label was ready. I explained the issue, but they wouldn't have it. So I took them down as instructed and left them in the big fridge at the back of the store. They sat there for a month until they expired, after which someone else recorded them for disposal. A few days later, someone at the head office noticed the enormous increase in wastage and reported it. So down the chain of command it went, and a red-faced area manager storms in to shout at a stern-faced store manager, who in turn calls over the intercom for me to drop everything and get into his office. I told them that I'm just looking for the label, and this is all while they search for a scapegoat for the $3,000 write-off that they had to do. I've since had similar things at other employers where the department heads had bonuses tied to sales, but didn't like me pricing up produce, so hardware would sit and gather dust, just like the meat at my previous job. But you know what? I'm paid by the hour. I have no bonuses, so I'm not going to argue this case, but instead, I'm just going to maliciously comply. It really sounds like that bonus structure is really stupid. Like, that is honestly just going to push all of your employees to really hate you if you're the manager. Instead of making sure things are going smoothly by using the budget appropriately, it seemed like this manager just wanted to squeeze as much money into his pockets as possible by making sure everybody did exactly as they were told. And that just seems really obnoxious. I would hate to work in that kind of environment. And the original poster had it right. They were only looking for a scapegoat when it came to writing off that $3,000 check. And if corporate had literally just let them keep the tags bugs on there that were already there, they could have solved this problem from the beginning. But at the end of the day, this is literally their own fault. And if they had just listened to this employee, they could have saved themselves $3,000 as well as a lot of food that got wasted for no reason. My sister comes over to my father's house and is constantly micromanaging and treating all of us like garbage. And I'm so sick of it and I seriously don't know what to do. So my dad is elderly and has some health and mobility issues. He is also a widow as my mom passed away unexpectedly 2 years ago. Beginning in February of this year, my dad was in the hospital twice for 2 different things. Luckily, he got better and has been back home ever since. Because of the health issues previously though, I was helping him for several months and we ended up deciding I'd temporarily move in with him to help more. So I lived about 20 minutes away and my sister also lived about 20 minutes from him. Now, my dad has some level of narcissistic tendencies, so at times it can be very difficult. What adds on more difficulties though is that my sister has tended to start correcting things and micromanaging things when she comes over. I'm there the majority of the time helping him out while not asking much from her in ways of support. She and I get along part of the time when it's just the 2 of us, but I've noticed sometimes with the 3 of us, there's a dynamic where she starts wanting to be in charge. A few weeks ago, she came over and told me that there was a bowl in the drainer that wasn't cleaned. It was clean, but it felt like she wanted to be superior and feel like she was helping. We got into a fight over it because she basically wanted me to admit that it wasn't clean and then apologize, and I was absolutely shocked. Today, a similar thing happened. She usually comes just Sundays to go to brunch with us, and I asked her after brunch to please do the grocery shopping for my dad because I was going to be cooking. She seemed disgruntled, but she did it. However, when she got back and started putting the groceries away, she noticed that there was already a container of orange juice in the fridge and that we had asked her to get a second one. I told her that dad already knows that we already have one, but he wanted extras because he goes through it really quickly. And as a result, she got worked up and tried to say that she doesn't know why she needed to get another one. She then went into the living room and tried to start correcting people, saying that there were water stains on the table, which again, there weren't. I showed her the coasters and I told her that we use them all the time. She did continue to harp about it, so I said to just let it go and that every time she comes over, she needs to stop micromanaging. She then told me that I can't take criticism and that I'm being ridiculous, and then she just left. I'm so tired of this happening. I put in so much work while I'm here, and I feel like I'm constantly berated by her when she comes over. Also, my dad is no help, as he's so worried about getting into a fight with her. She's had periods of months in the past of taking breaks from talking to him when they've gotten into an argument, so he constantly is trying to appease her and is basically walking on eggshells. Even today, the grocery bill was $160, which the list I made for my dad would not have even been over $80. She likely used up his card to get things for herself. On the phone after she left, he briefly asked her about it. She said it adds up, and he said to get a receipt next time, and then he just let it go. I had told him about what happened, and I told him that he should tell her that this isn't okay, since it is his house after all, because otherwise she's just gonna do it again. But let's not forget, because he's afraid of starting something with her, he basically doesn't address it. I'm honestly so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Your sister sounds incredibly toxic. She clearly is only there to try and micromanage, and you know what? She's just really not a good person. Your dad is a widow. He is obviously having health problems, and the first thing that should be on her mind is a willingness to first help out with the family. This behavior is just inappropriate. Spending all of your parents' money and then creating a hostile environment where no one can talk to you about how awful you're being. This really is incredibly unfair, and hopefully some kind of solution can come from this, because your dad deserves better, and you deserve to have a sister who is engaged in your father's happiness as well as helping him out in his life. My male coworker constantly screams at me anytime I ask him a work-related question, and I'm so frustrated with his behavior, I seriously don't know what to do. So I work in retail, and I have a male coworker by the name of John who is a teenager. John is not their real name, and guess where this is going? The issue lies in the fact that he's dating my shift manager, so his girlfriend has to deal with this. He scoffed at me, so I asked him politely why he did that. He then started screaming at me in front of customers, saying stuff like, "I hate confrontation. It makes me uncomfortable, so it's bad. It's not inherently bad, it's just bad because I don't like it." I retorted that even before, when I asked him work-related questions, he would scoff or sigh or just straight up ignore me, and that I treat my other coworkers the exact same. I usually ask questions to communicate and clarify information. Apparently, he claims that asking asking work-related questions still counts as confrontation. When I told him it wasn't okay to make fun of a customer or be rude, he brushed me off by saying the customer deserved it, or that I only remind him of company policies that we have to follow to make sure that things go well. He said that he thinks the policies are stupid and that they're super unimportant, so it doesn't matter, and that he doesn't care what I think. Every time I brought my side of the story up, he would yell over me and say that it doesn't matter because he's uncomfortable. Now, I did not yell once. I just stayed quiet, and all the customers were just staring at us. My shift lead tried to calm us down, but she didn't do much. I just immediately contacted the manager to try and explain the situation and ask that I never be scheduled with John ever again. Afterwards, we tried to hold an impromptu discussion that I first rejected because in my mind and experience, people who think they're right or never respected you in the first place basically indicates to me that the discussion never will go well and that it's simply not worth it, especially if they think that they're right. As you can probably guess, John screamed at me again, so I raised my voice in response and he stopped. I already warned him that he will not be yelling at me or interrupting me ever again. I asked for an apology and he said it in a passive-aggressive voice. He said, "I am sorry I yelled at you, and I'm sorry I did it in front of others. I'm also sorry about the way that you feel. I'm sorry how I made you feel small." Now, I called him out for the fake apology and he agreed. Then he said he thinks I'm wrong and that he doesn't care. So I asked the shift that unless he keeps his silence and lets me speak, I will leave. I basically brought up everything he has done that I never confronted him about. And these are things that other coworkers have complained about, but management is way too soft. John even made fun of a Mexican man for not speaking English. And this guy is a regular that stopped coming because of this. He was rude to a child that messed up, and I have to apologize to try and cover for him all the time. He would also talk bad about my family and then proceed to yell at me. He talked bad about my brother, and I asked him to stop, and he has never even met my brother before. He would also not listen to other shifts that would warn him about his behavior. He would use the bathroom sometimes 14 times a shift, and he would clog the toilets constantly. And sometimes he wouldn't even be using the bathroom. He would just be squatting on top of the toilet, watching TikTok videos on his phone with the volume fully up. Sometimes he would also try to use my laptop and try to do my work without my permission. Before he dated the shift lead, he liked another coworker, and since she rejected him, he called her a jerk as well as all these other names. He's constantly bumping into me for no reason. He used to check me out all the time and also try to talk to me a lot, and now he's screaming at me. My manager said that John wants to set up another meeting with all four of us this time. I let him know that I do not want to talk to an immature child. I already had 2 discussions so far, which he yelled at and put me down in both of them. I would rather resign or not be scheduled with this idiot. I was also extremely uncomfortable because John called me, and he was having a date at the shift lead's house in her room, which is extremely inappropriate in this circumstance. I had several male coworkers let go for harassing other coworkers. In fact, these guys would ask me and tell me about their attractions, even when I told them not to. A shift lead defended his friend for harassing a girl. I, myself, had a guy harass me and do all these other horrible things towards me. I honestly think that this workplace just keeps attracting weirdos. I love the customers in my store, but I think it's time for me to find a new job. I also had an audio recording of my female coworkers joking about picking people to bully. I've also had a coworker make fun of me because of my financial situation. It's all so exhausting and I seriously don't know what to do. It sounds like it's time to go above your shift manager and go straight to HR. Like seriously, go above everybody. This is clearly not getting resolved locally, and I bet corporate would have a field day with what's going on. This guy has been inappropriate with you. He has been verbally aggressive. It sounds like he's hit you on a few occasions by bumping into you, and it really is inappropriate. Like seriously, this is not okay. He's also yelling at you in front of customers. Like seriously, what is that all about? That is absolutely a no-go, and this guy needs to be fired. And also, his girlfriend needs to not be the shift manager. Like that just doesn't help the situation, because you know for a fact that she's just gonna cover for him and probably excuse all of his toxic behavior. So hopefully something can be done. And I think in the meantime, it's probably a good idea to start looking for another job, because from what you've described, this place sounds awful, and I seriously don't see it getting any better anytime soon. An entitled tenant destroys my mother-in-law's property, causing over $100,000 in damages to her expensive home in New York City. But karma was on our side, as we were able able to eventually get revenge on this entitled tenant by not only winning a court case against him, but also winning over his house 15 years later. Here's what happened. So my mother-in-law is a pretty well-off woman. She owns a large number of rental properties, and her husband have a huge house located just outside of New York City. It's got an outdoor pool, it's got a sauna, it has elevators, and then some. It is easily worth well into the 7 figures mark, and it's only about 5 minutes away from downtown Manhattan. Sadly, her husband passed away, and she remarried and moved out of state. She put the house up for rent shortly afterwards. A broker approached her with 2 prospective tenants. Now, the tenants were music producers and had some legitimate stuff on their resume that they had worked with. One of them was the business guy, and the other one was the talent. For the talent, we'll call him Ben. Ben is not his real name. The 2 were partners in the beginning, and the business guy made sure the rent was paid on time. He was legit and did not mess around. They used the house as a place for artists to chill out and work on their music. After a couple of years, the business guy and Ben had some sort of falling out, with the business guy leaving and Ben sticking around. At first, he continued to pay his rent on time, but after a few months, it kept getting later and later. By itself, it's not the worst thing. When you own real estate, it kind of comes with the territory. But he started to get really aggressive as my mother-in-law kept insisting that she needed to be paid. My mother-in-law is not a mean person, and she values politeness and manners above all else. Finally, my mother-in-law had had enough, so she had to evict him. After the eviction, they went through the house and assessed over $100,000 in damages. There were cigarette burns in the carpet, there were stains on the wall, the pool filters and the plumbing had damages. Eventually, after assessing everything, she took him to court and won, and had a lien placed against all of his property. Ben was absolutely broke, aside from his house, and my mother-in-law didn't see the point in trying to get blood from stone, so she just moved on. Fast forward about 15 years later, and my mother-in-law receives a notice in the mail that the bank is foreclosing on Ben's home. Because she had a lien placed on all of his assets, the bank was asking a judge to dismiss her lien so that they could collect whatever they owed from the sale of the home. My mother-in-law was obviously going to contest this, but then she got clever. She approached the bank and basically said, "Look, sell me the house at fair market value less than what I'm owed, and you'll save on foreclosure costs, brokers, lawyers, and then some. I have cash on hand and it's a win-win for everybody." After a little bit more discussion, the bank agrees, and she purchased the house for about 25% below market value. Mind you, that was 25% of money that she was owed anyways, but still, she didn't think she would ever see it again. Now, of course, given all of Ben's terrible behavior, my mother-in-law knew that she wanted him to know exactly who it was that was taking his house. So she found out the day that they were moving out, and she just so happened to stop by. When my mother-in-law walked up, Ben had a difficulty placing her. It had been well over a decade since they last spoke, but once he realized who she was, he basically cussed her out. She never said a word though, and all she did was smile, leaving this guy furious, but her satisfied that she got revenge. This story was an amazing way to get revenge. She had to deal with some jerk who ruined her property, only to then fast forward 15 years in the future, and now she owns the home that he can't afford anymore. That is honestly so funny. And you know what? This guy had to seriously be trying to cause damage in their mansion if he was doing $100,000 worth of damage. Like, that's a lot of property damage that someone could suddenly do in someone's home. And sure, there's probably a lot of things in that home that the mother-in-law owned that was probably very expensive and top of the line, but to do $100,000 in damages is honestly insane to me. So good for the original poster's mother-in-law for getting this awesome revenge, because at the end of the day, she truly did get the last laugh. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My husband of 1 month may have cheated on me at his bachelor party that took place after the wedding, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my husband and I have been married for about a month now. I'm 22 weeks pregnant, and he wasn't able to put together a bachelor party before the wedding, so he asked if he could do it afterwards, and I expressed that I didn't like it, but I wanted to give him the freedom to have the bachelor's party that he always dreamed of having. So he went to the Bahamas with 11 of his buddies, ensuring me that all they wanted to do was golf, play basketball, gamble, and hang by the beach. All 11 guys are either in relationships or married. None of them are single, and 3 have pregnant wives at home. Long story short, I see a video one of them drunkenly posted from a nightclub where there were girls at their table with them. When I confronted my husband, saying that made me uncomfortable to see that, as none of the guys guys are single, he got defensive and said he can't control what his friends do and that he had done absolutely nothing wrong. I spent the night crying myself to sleep and just feeling super alone. The next day, they were at the hotel's day club, and I looked at the day club's Instagram story, and there were girls at their cabana. Then that night, my husband told me he wasn't going out with everyone because he didn't want to make me uncomfortable. Fast forward to him coming home, and he tells me a few questionable stories about the guys, all of whom I'm friends with their wives or girlfriends, and then he just goes off to the gym. I'm not proud of this, but when he left, I went on his iPad to see if he had taken any pictures, only to end up finding messages to his friends, begging them to delete some of the photos of him from the night before. I confronted him, and he said that the night he said he was staying in, they actually all went out to the nightclub, and they took videos of him dancing around with girls all around him. He claims that he didn't and would never cheat on me, and that he didn't even touch another girl on the dance floor. But he thought if I ever saw the photos, I would be really upset, so he wanted to avoid the outcome. I also saw the messages that the men in the relationships from back home were seeking out girls, and they even had them up in their rooms. One of them even spent some quality time with the lady of the night, if you know what I mean. I feel so betrayed and lied to. I am pregnant and I don't know what to do. I have always trusted him and never ever thought that I would be in this kind of situation. He has apologized 100 times and said that nothing matters more to him than our family, and he swears he never did anything that would be considered cheating, but I don't know how I'm supposed to believe him. What am I supposed to do now? How can I possibly move forward? I don't want to be a single mom, and I really did believe in him. What should I do? This is a horrible situation. Not only was your husband straight up lying to you, but his friends are also being unfaithful to their wives and girlfriends. Like seriously, this is messed up. And personally, if I was in your shoes and I knew the information that you do about these other men, I absolutely would be going to their girlfriends or wives and saying, hey, your boyfriend and or husband might straight up be cheating on you. Like, it's time for them to find out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't think there's anything wrong with letting them know that, hey, this is what's up. And then they can make the decisions of what they want to do with their relationship from there. They deserve a right to know. And in that same vein of thought, you also deserve the right to know. Your husband was clearly being unfaithful. He was dancing around with other women. He was lying to you about what he was actually doing. And that is just from what you know. You literally don't know all the details of what happened on those 11 days. And if I was in your situation, I would also be really freaked out. So it's obviously time to have a serious conversation with your husband. And it's time to find out the truth of if he did anything more than just dance around and have photos with other women. My boyfriend doesn't want me to go to his high school reunion anymore, and he refuses to explain why. And I feel so hurt and upset over this, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend invited me to his 10-year high school reunion a few weeks ago. We've been together for over a year, we live together, and he constantly talks about a future with me. His friends all know me well. Their girlfriends know and like me as well, and there's no issues there. He invites me a few weeks ago when he gets the email asking if he'll be using his +1. I usually work Friday nights as I am a bartender, so I had to request off. I got approved, went and got a dress for the event, and I am now missing out on about $350 just to attend this event. I know it could be kind of boring, but I'm a very outgoing person, and I know how to keep myself occupied. I've never had trouble making friends, and like I said, I know his friends and their girlfriends really well. Well, yesterday, 3 days before the event, he tells me that he doesn't want to go anymore. I was so confused, and I asked him why, and he said his guy friends aren't bringing their partners, so he thought that I'd be uncomfortable going. Instead of asking me not to go, he's telling me that we both don't have to go at all because he feels bad for inviting me. I told him that he can go without me if it means that much that I'm not there. He could tell though that I was a little let down, so he just said neither of us are going. I'm kind of upset by this. Not only did I take off work and buy a dress, but I was genuinely excited to get to know more about this part of his life, as well as the fact that he wanted to bring me along. I've met girls and guys from his high school days, and they've always been very nice and happy to meet me, telling me stories about days back then, and I was always excited to meet these people from his past. I figured it had to be an ex from high school, but I asked him and he said he didn't have a girlfriend in high school. His first girlfriend was freshman year of college. I know his friends' partners, and I know they would all want to go. So the fact that they aren't bringing their girlfriends has got to be the boys' decision. Why are all the guys choosing not to bring their girlfriends? If a +1 was on every invite, isn't it expected that their own classmates would be doing the same? and now suddenly he just doesn't want to go at all? It makes me think that he's hiding something, like they're going to meet up with people that they don't want me or us, meaning the female partners, around and watching. The event is at a bar and it's an open bar. Am I thinking too deep into this? What does this all mean? I'm pretty let down and I'm also suspicious, which makes my boyfriend angry. When I told him I was upset about it, he got really angry with me and said he's just not going to discuss it, stating that no one else's girlfriends are giving them any of these issues and that I'm specifically being ridiculous. But I genuinely just wanted to go with him. But instead I got told never mind, and I really just want to understand why. What should I do? That is really sketchy behavior, but I think you're going to do a lot more damage than good if you jump to some kind of conclusion. Sure, maybe it does seem like this is just an excuse for it to be a boys' night out and for something sketchy to be going on. But honestly, it might just be the first thing. Maybe all these guys just want to reminisce on their times in high school and they didn't want their girlfriends or any other partner along with them. Maybe they all just collectively said, okay, let's just try and make this a guy's night and try and have a good time without our partners involved. I mean, that's like the only thing I can think of that might have any kind of sensibility about it. But with that thought in mind, I don't blame you for being upset about this. This is really annoying. You took off time from work, and this is work where you get paid in tips, and you're basically missing out on a couple $100, all because your boyfriend is suddenly acting a little bit weird. So hopefully something can be done about this. Because while I doubt he's trying to cheat on you, I do think there is some kind of ulterior motive where he and the rest of the guys most likely just don't want their girlfriends to attend. My friend's girlfriend confessed that she has been attracted to me for several years now, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I first want to start off by saying that all the names in the story are fake. So I've been friends with this guy, we'll call him Mike, since my freshman year of college. The girl, let's call her Sarah, has been his long-term girlfriend of 3 years. I've probably spent hundreds of hours with him and his girlfriend, going to bars, going to parties, watching movies and TV shows during COVID, and just hanging out in general. Around March of this year, I hooked up with a friend of my friend's girlfriend, and it was a somewhat regular thing for about 2 months before we graduated and she moved out, but we're still in touch overall. We had a small get-together at Mike's house just this last Saturday, where we had a group of around 6 people that just got together to celebrate graduation and to chill and just socialize. There was a time during the get-together where I was sitting around a table with others on Mike's back deck, and Sarah was sitting right next to me, but Mike had gone inside to show his degrees and some pictures to one of the guys that was visiting. So it was just me and Sarah outside for like 15 minutes. It was during this time that Sarah sat next to me and leaned in next to me and started to talk to me about her friend and how she said that her friend told her all about me and that she got back a fantastic report from her friend and said that it sounded like I was quite the performer, if you know what I mean. While I originally just took it as her joking around and her just being a little bit drunk, I quickly realized that it was different when she leaned in and told me that she had always thought about me and wished that she had gotten with me instead of Mike. Now, I didn't try to make a scene or draw any kind of attention. I hoped to just change the subject because I assumed that she was drunk and I didn't want to upset my friend Mike and tell him that Sarah was saying that stuff to me. So I just told her things like, Mike is amazing for you, you love Mike, and you guys have been together for so long. She told me that it was a mistake to be with Mike because of his height. She also went on to tell me that she didn't want to spend quality time with Mike until they had been together for 3 weeks, if you know what I mean. But then she turned it around and said that she wanted to spend quality time with me after the first time we met. She basically talked all this garbage about Mike to me and tried to tell me that he was inferior to me and that he wasn't mindful of her at all. It was an incredibly awkward situation because I felt like if I pushed back too much on her and outright called her out and reported her to my friend, then she would be able to turn it around and say that I was making it all up and that I was the one who tried to escalate things with her. While I was sitting there talking to her, it didn't occur to me at the moment, but I realized like 5 minutes into it that I should try to privately voice record her talking to me so I could then use it as proof to show to Mike if she ever tried to deny it or tried to say that I was the one flirting with her. So I recorded like 2 minutes of the conversation before it ends, and while the audio isn't great, it was at a point in the conversation where it unfortunately sounds like I'm not being very resistant to the flirting, and it's not really definitive that I wasn't flirting with her. So the audio was kind of useless from the perspective of defending myself if I had to go to Mike just to tell him about it. This happened just this weekend, and I'm not sure how to go about it. I haven't talked to Mike or Sarah since then, and I also don't know what she said to him, or if he even has any idea that she told me any of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if she had cheated on him in the past, given what she told me about him and how much it seemed like she doesn't like being with him. While it does suck, I'm not really seeing any way that I don't lose this entire relationship and friend circle over this. Even if I come clean to Mike and admit everything to him, it probably isn't going to be the best thing for our relationship when it looks like I basically stole his girlfriend's affection from him. I obviously don't want to start dating or hooking up with Sarah, because then that makes me an actual scumbag that stole a friend's girlfriend or spent time with his friend's girlfriend behind his back. If I just say nothing, maybe Sarah will just act like nothing ever happened and we can just keep it as a secret between us. I don't want my friend to be dating someone that isn't genuinely into him, but at the same time, I don't want to blow up this relationship by telling him that his girlfriend wants to be with me. I just feel totally stuck here. I know Mike is somewhat insecure about stuff like his height, and he would always ask me to slouch over and stuff into photos, and he would take pictures from the knee up and always stand all the way up on his tippy toes when taking group photos. And he was obviously insecure about it, and he even puts lifts in his shoes. If I come out and tell him that his girlfriend wanted to be with me because I'm more of a man than he is, it is literally going to crush him, and it will 100% ruin our relationship. But at the same time, him staying with Sarah is only going to hurt him in the long run when she inevitably cheats on him. What should I do? This is honestly a catch-22, because on one hand, you absolutely are going to ruin this relationship, but on the other hand, your friend kind of deserves the right to know. And also, Sarah is sketchy. We don't like Sarah. Never be around Sarah by yourself ever again. She was clearly under the influence and she was drunk, but you know what? That is a poor excuse. She knew what she was doing. She was clearly coming on to you, and that is not okay. And you're right, she's gonna cheat on somebody. So in my opinion, I would make sure that that is not you. Distance yourself from Sarah and maybe see if you can spend time with Mike without her being around. Or if she is around, just make sure you're not by yourself with her, because she seems like the type of person who might try something when Mike isn't around. And you absolutely better protect yourself, because she sounds incredibly sketchy. I'm convinced that my sister's new boyfriend is a walking red flag, and he has done and said a lot of weird things that have really made me question his motives, and I seriously don't know how to get through to my sister. Here's what happened. So for a little bit of background, my sister ended her first relationship half a year ago. It was a 3-year-long relationship. They lived together for 2 years, and that guy was an absolute moron. Indecisive, weaponized incompetence, the whole jazz. My sister basically had to mommy him. She had to do all the mental work, as well as the chores while going to college and work. It was really messed up. After their lease ended, she dumped the guy and found an affordable studio for herself. She looked so much happier, and now she met her new boyfriend 2 months ago. So I can understand why this guy is so much more desirable after her ex-boyfriend. He has his stuff together, he's living in his own apartment alone, and he has a stable career, and he knows what he wants. But there is kind of a catch along with this. I've only met him 2 times, and both times he has rubbed me the wrong way. He spoke a little condescendingly to my sister, as well as to me after 2 beers, and when we started to go out to a concert, he asked my sister to change her clothing because he's not going to be there to protect her from other men. Now, I have a taser, a kitty cat boxer, and some pepper spray, and my sister has pepper spray as well, so I think we're good. When I pointed this out to him, he just rolled his eyes. My sister just brushed it off and said, "Oh, he's so protective." Also, this guy moves way too quickly. He wants my sister to move in with him in July when my sister's lease is up. He is constantly love bombing her. He's talking to her about marriage and having kids. He wants to put her on his life insurance. He even demanded that my sister share her location with him after he found out that she shares it with me. He also wants her to quit her job. And of course, he constantly has something to say about her outfit, as well as her friends or even what she's eating. But of course, he's having her best interest in his heart, because apparently he wants what's best for her, which I really just don't believe. But every time I try to bring up this topic with my sister, she dismisses my concerns and changes the topic. I really think that she's looking at this guy with rose-tinted glasses, and she thinks that I'm projecting my own awful marriage onto her. Honestly, I don't know how to get through to her, and I really don't know what to do. This may sound weird, but I really don't know if there's anything you can do. You've brought it up to her, you've tried to communicate that, hey, this guy is not really as nice as you think, and you've tried to warn her in advance, but she completely dismissed you. And unfortunately, in my opinion, this is probably where that conversation ends. You can't make decisions for her, unfortunately, and this is gonna be be a mistake that she's just gonna have to deal with. And obviously you wanna be there for her if she ever brings this up. It is her life after all, and you can't control what she does and doesn't do. My entitled manager is constantly micromanaging everything that I do, demanding that I stop fixing and repairing our equipment, despite the fact that it would take weeks for us to get it repaired. So I decide to maliciously comply, and as a result, I cost them thousands of dollars in the process, resulting in this manager eventually getting fired. Here's what happened. So I worked for a convenience store for a good while. I had worked up the ladder to become a manager, and I was liked by the customers and employees. I was the one vendors loved because I didn't leave them a super tight leash. All in all, I believed I was a very good manager, and some of my old employees and customers want me back after I quit. Now, you may be wondering, if it was going so well, why would I have left? Well, it's the same reason many people quit: bad corporate bosses. See, I didn't just deal with people, I was dealing with bad equipment that needed to be fixed regularly. It would cut into the store's budget, and I used that money for employee parties or cash rewards, besides the employee of the month. I saw the issue and I took action. I would fix the issues myself. I have many certifications to fix many different things. So I decided, rather than to wait for maintenance to come around 4 days after the issue was brought up, or having to wait an additional 2 to 3 days just for them to fix it, I decided I would fix it instead. We're talking issues from as simple as a card reader error to the whole system being down, mechanical fixes to equipment that varied widely, as many things were well past their prime. If I couldn't fix it, then it needed to be replaced. That's basically what it came down to. My regional manager knew my skills, as did the owner. They were working to get me on their maintenance crew. That is, up until the buyout. The owner had gotten to the point in life that he wanted to spend it quietly with his family. The new company stepped in, and this is when things took a turn. There is a guy who stood above the regional management. He came in every so often to check in on the stores in the area. From the get-go, he did not like me, and was told he never acted that way in other stores. Well, he had to come in one day to see me fixing one of our slushy machines. He yelled that I shouldn't be doing that and should be directing the store. Listen, I trusted my team. They are all good workers and they knew what to do. He pointed out how stuff was not pulled forward, or how the drinks were not facing brand name out. I had explained that the slushies make more sales and that it needs to be fixed right now. He told me that as a manager, I do not have the qualifications to do something like that, and that I could break it. So from that day on, I was not to fix anything after I explained everything I fixed. I tried to explain my qualifications, and that I was told by the last owner that they were going to try and make me on the maintenance team, but he did not like this at all. He basically told me that would never happen. Well, our store went from having the least tickets to one of the most maintenance tickets in the area. Each ticket would cost as low as $250 or as much as $800. This was just to get the tech there plus the part cost after it was needed. Our sales also started to go down as a result. Why, you may ask? Well, because the equipment wouldn't have the same day fix it was used to having. Couldn't use the card reader? Time for a ticket. The whole store system was down? Guess that's another ticket. You might even say that I was maliciously complying to this stupid boss. He would always try to overstep me. Our cooler went out and I had to get a band-aid fix. So I had different vendors give me a floor cooler until this was resolved. When it was resolved, I kept one. Why, you may ask? My insight to the possible sales. Afterwards, every store got the same cooler for a new product I knew was coming out. I always liked being ahead of the game. I would often get yelled at because our sales were down. It came to a point that a meeting was held. I was asked why this was happening, so I provided exactly why. And it was one of my finest moments. I laid it all out on the table. The disrespect, the blatant ignoring my recommendations, the reason why things were no longer being properly fixed, as well as all of my certifications that I tried to explain to this manager. Now, this guy didn't like that I was right. So the meeting turned from why sales were down to why did this stupid manager have this meeting. My regional manager told him I had been doing this for years and wondered why it was such a problem. It got heated pretty quickly. This guy wasn't fired, but I was allowed to run my store the way I wanted to again. He tried to keep up his antics, so the week before I left, I knew some equipment would fail. I mean, after working on it for so long, you start to notice the signs that it's falling apart. And this one was a tricky fix because it needed a system reset as well as a breaker box on and off, and then it needed a software reset on the device prices. The reason it needed this was because of the system they implemented, and it was basically confusing itself. It didn't help that the server was not set up properly either. It is one of the worst setups I've honestly ever seen. Don't get me started on the store's main computer. Just why was this never updated from like 20 years ago? Well, when I left, I was getting calls on how to fix it, of course. I told them that I no longer work there, and if they wanted my service, it's gonna cost them. They asked me how much, and I set my price at $500. They actually laughed in my face and said no. Well, I heard from the grapevine that it cost them close to $6,000. They had to replace the server, all the registers, all the card readers, and the computer. The reason it cost $6,000 wasn't just because of the physical upgrades. It was also because they found out the system was garbage. When it came to light how awful this manager truly was, he was eventually let go. I now live my life as someone who owns their own tech company, and I've never been happier to see someone get fired in my life. The guy that was over the original poster was being so obnoxious. He clearly was jealous of the original poster's skills and didn't like the fact that he was handling this without any kind of input. This was obviously some kind of power play, and it was so unfair for the original poster as well. So honestly, good for the original poster for not only getting revenge, but also getting this guy fired. If he had just let you continue to fix up your store, none of this would have happened. And that guy has no one else to blame except for himself. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius? Check it out, link down below in the description. My boss demands that we answer our cell phone anytime he calls, forcing us even to pull over onto the side of the road and answer his phone calls instead of driving. And his rules were so obnoxious, and I'm so glad I don't work there anymore. So the owner of a small company issued me a company cell phone and felt that gave him an excuse to call me anytime, day or night, workday or not. And this would always be with stupid questions. He also kept changing the rules about using those phones. One rule was that we had to answer as soon as possible. Another rule was that we were not allowed to talk on the phones while we were driving. We literally had to pull over and park and then answer the phone and talk. So one morning I'm driving to work, and I should be getting to the office about 15 minutes early. And that's right when my company phone rings. Morning traffic is heavy near the office, and it takes me some time to get out of the traffic and park in a parking lot before I answer. Mind you, he keeps it ringing the entire time. When I finally answer, he asks me, "Where are you?" I tell him I'm about 10 minutes away from the office, but I had to stop to answer his call. He then asks me, "Why aren't you here yet?" I tell him again that I probably would have been there by now, but his call and his rules have me sitting in a parking lot instead. I then ask him, "What's the hurry? Is there an emergency or something?" If I wasn't interrupted, I would have been in the office a lot earlier. He then responds, basically ignoring everything I said, and says to me, "Why aren't you coming?" So I had to literally remind him of his rules, that I am not to answer his phone and drive at the same time. This type of stupid banter continues for a while, until he eventually gets tired. So he hangs up and I continue to the office. And now, because of him, I'm about 15 minutes late to work. When I get to the office, the owner meets with me and demands that I give him back the phone. He claims that I do not deserve it. But you know what? That was a victory. Now he is unable to call me and bother me at all hours of the day and night. About a week later, the owner stops by my cubicle and asks why I'm not answering his cell phone calls. Like, really? Are you serious right now? I remind him that he confiscated my phone. He apparently shoved it into the drawer, and he can't hear it when he's trying to call me. Needless to say, I have moved on to much greener pastures, and I'm very glad to be away from this owner. That guy sounds like an absolute idiot. First off, that's a really stupid rule. Unless you live in a state or a country where you can't have your cell phone on you while you're driving, that, in my opinion, is a really dumb rule. You're literally just inconveniencing people, and that's a form of micromanagement that honestly nobody needs. No one needs to answer your phone call that quickly and that urgently. And also, this person was on their way to work, and they were about 15 minutes early. So why is this guy acting like, "Well, why aren't you here yet?" Like, what are you talking about? I'm on my way to work itself. It's not like I'm not showing up and not doing my job. Like, come on. So honestly, with this level of micromanagement, I don't really blame the original poster for eventually quitting and going to something else. And according to the original poster, it was right after this cell phone incident that they basically said, "Yeah, I'm gonna pack up, I'm gonna go," because that rule is just obnoxious. And if I worked there, there's no way I would ever want that guy to ever bother me day or night. Today, I messed up by showing up to work thinking that it was a dress-up day, dressed as Batman. But I soon found out that it was delayed by 1 week, since an important client was going to be there in the office. And I've never been more embarrassed in my life. life. Here's what happened. So this actually happened earlier today, and I'm still reeling from the sheer embarrassment of it all. For context, I work in a pretty average office setting, but my colleagues and I like to spice things up with themed dress-ups every now and then. This week, we all agreed to come in dressed as our favorite superheroes. Naturally, I was super excited to participate. I've always been a huge fan of superheroes, and I've always had this awesome Batman costume that I've been itching to wear ever since I got it for Halloween last year. So I woke up early, I got dressed in my full Batman getup, and I even went as far as doing my full Batman voice to complete the persona. I was ready to show up to work and save the day. As soon as I walked into the office, I could tell that something was off. People were staring at me with a mixture of confusion, amusement, and just a hint of terror. I figured that they were just in awe of my Batman transformation, and they didn't think much of it. My manager approached me with a stifled laugh and asked me, "Hey, Batman, did you happen to check your email this morning?" I replied, still in character, "Email? Batman has no need for such trivial matters." My manager then explained that there had been a last-minute email sent out last night, postponing the dress-up day to next week due to an important client meeting scheduled for today. My face went beet red as I realized I was standing in the middle of the office dressed as Batman with zero context to justify it. To make matters worse, the important client arrived just in time to witness my embarrassment. They were surprisingly cool about it, even joking that they felt safer with Batman around. Still, I spent the rest of the day hiding in my cubicle, answering calls in my best Bruce Wayne voice, and praying for the sweet release of the end of the workday. Now I'm sitting at home in full Batman attire, contemplating how I'm going to show my face at work on Monday. Honestly, this is not your fault. Why in the world would nobody make this call a little bit sooner? Like seriously, why would you do this the day before? Who checks their email in the morning before going to work? Like seriously, who does that? I know I wouldn't do that. Checking my email would literally be the last thing on my mind going into this. I would be excited to wear my Batman costume that probably costs a lot of money for Halloween. I wouldn't want to check my stupid email. So this is really not the original poster's fault. They got bamboozled and nobody clued them in that no, we're not doing the dress up this week. We're doing it next week. Like, don't you think you should call people instead of just send an email and then pray that people actually see it? Like, what is going on? It's seriously unfair, and you know what? I would be upset with management that they didn't make this call a little bit sooner, because that way people could have avoided embarrassment and at least attempted to save face in front of an important client. The former tenant of my new apartment is falsely accusing me of stealing her stuff, and I'm so blown away by this accusation that I seriously am now at a loss and I don't know what to do. So I just moved into a new apartment with my roommates last week. The night we moved in, some lady in her early 20s knocked on our door. She said she used to live in our apartment but had just moved a floor down and asked if she had left any of her belongings there in the apartment. We told her that we hadn't spotted anything that wasn't ours and that if we ever found something we would let her know. She left and I honestly thought that was the end of it. Well, yesterday evening I was coming back from running errands when the same girl cornered me in the stairwell and said to me, "You're the one who stole my things and threw them in the trash." When I told her I didn't know what she was talking about, let alone what stuff she was referring to, she said to me, "You need to stop lying and own up to your actions." I tried telling her that her stuff wasn't in the apartment and that there wasn't anything I could do to help her out, but she didn't want to hear any of it. She just scoffed and stormed off. Now I'm really weirded out about all of this, and I'm not exactly sure what to do. The apartment, by the way, was fully empty when we moved in, and we truly have nothing to do with any of this. We do not have her belongings. I do feel bad for her if she really did lose her belongings, but if anyone threw anything away, it was the cleaning crew, and it was definitely not us. The only thing that my roommates and I have thrown away was an old rusty shower caddy that was in the shower when we got there, and we had no reason to believe it belonged to a previous tenant, especially in the state it was in. I hope she gets her stuff back, but I'm not looking to have any enemies or conflicts in my apartment complex. So is there any way to get this lady off of my back, especially since she already cornered me once and I really don't want this to happen again? How do I get it through to her that I didn't throw any of her stuff away? And how am I going to deal with future confrontations with this person? What should I do? I would go straight to management and be like, "Look, this crazy lady a floor down is blaming me for stealing her stuff out of the apartment I moved into." Like literally, that is who I would go to first. I would not try and resolve this on my own. The woman you're speaking to clearly sounds upset, and she's obviously either trying to scam you and your roommates, or she's trying to look for a scapegoat for all the things that she had stolen. Like, she could possibly be trying to get you on recording of saying, yes, I stole something of yours, and then try and report it to the police and get you in trouble for something that you didn't actually do. Like, that seriously is unfair, and this is not something you should deal with. So seriously, I would go to management and explain what's going on. I would keep my distance and not allow this lady any space in your life. And if she really did have something stolen, she should go to the police, because it sounds like you and your friends had absolutely nothing to do with it. An entitled mom becomes enraged over another kid leaving an event, screaming and complaining that the event organizer actually kicked him out, despite the fact that none of that was true. Here's what happened. So I volunteer at this place and recently helped out with an educational thing. Parents and kids of all ages would come to this little workshop for the day and would learn some artistic things as well. One of the kids is not happy to be there. He's with his mom and little brother. He refuses to do anything. Keeps saying stuff like, "No, I want to go home. Go away." At first, I just thought to myself, this was just your typical 12 to 13-year-old boy. There's another family there of a mom and her two kids who are around the same age as the other boy. The rest of the children are a fair bit younger. Now, the entitled mother of this story knows this other boy. Her son is friends with him, so she tries to encourage him to engage just a little bit. And she does this to the point where she's ignoring her own kids when they're trying to show her their work. Over an hour into this boy refusing to work, making rude comments, and basically wanting to leave, and eventually the person running the workshop asks to talk to him and his mother. They all come to the conclusion that he would be happier at home and that they can organize another session better suited for him later on. His mom returns to the workshop to be with her other son. Upon hearing the news that this boy has gone home, the entitled mother starts kicking off at the person running it, accusing them of kicking a child out due to his additional needs. For reference, this workshop is inclusive of all needs. That's kind of the point of it. I personally feel like they were including his needs because they let him leave, it was stressing him out, and he wasn't happy. He wanted to go home, and they even organized a session that is better suited for him on a later date, and a better day for him. Also, his own mother agreed, so I have no clue why this other lady was butting into his defense. And at this point, she is literally screaming and yelling in front of the children and forces her kids to leave with her. They didn't want to leave and were having a great time. The mom of the boy who left is just standing there fully shocked, trying to explain that it's okay. Oh, and to top it all off, we got the classic line from this entitled mom that she was going to call the manager. My theory is that she thinks she has some kind of special connection with him where she is the only one who can get through to him and get him to completely turn around and enjoy his day, since she was more focused on what he was doing and not her own kids. But with him going home, she just can't do that anymore. Regardless, this entitled mom was super annoying, and I'm really glad that she left. Yeah, that's really annoying. The kid didn't want to be there, and she clearly was not getting through to him. She probably thought she was going to try and be a champion of the special needs kid or something like that, and was literally only talking to that kid probably for attention. She was even ignoring the mother of the boy that decided to leave. Like, seriously, if he doesn't want to be there, then why would you make him be there? No one kicked him out or anything like that. That's ridiculous. Because at the end of the day, that kid is 13 years old, and if this event is not serving his needs, then he should not be forced to sit around and be forced to enjoy it. Today, I messed up by accidentally making my colleague think that I'm pregnant. Here's what happened. So this has been going on for about 3 months now, and I know I need to fix the situation, but it feels like it's moved past the point of no return, and to be honest, I just feel so embarrassed. So for some background, I used to work at the main office for my company. I met my colleagues there, and we'll call her Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith is not her real name. Mrs. Smith left the company to go work somewhere else, and in that time, I got engaged. And due to a promotion in the company, I moved to a different branch. At the end of last year, Mrs. Smith joined our company again, and this whole debacle started when I visited the original branch in March for some training. We were standing talking, and I was standing with my hands folded on my stomach. Mrs. Smith looked in my hand's direction and said she wants to ask me a question, but she's not sure how to ask it, so she'll just ask if her guess is correct. Now, naive me thinks that she means the ring on my hand, and I just answer yes. She then starts babbling about how exciting it is and how our lives will change and all this other stuff, and I just nod along and agree with everything she says. Later that day, as my brain decides to replay all of my awkward encounters, it finally dawns on me. Oh no, she thinks I'm pregnant. As I'm lying there cringing, all I can think about is that I'm gonna be going back to my town, so hopefully because she won't see me anytime soon, she'll just forget and move on. Fast forward to April, when she calls me to discuss a new project that we are working on. And again, Mrs. Smith asks me, "So are you ready and excited?" And again, me being the naive idiot that I am, thinks that she's talking about the project, so I say yes. And yet again, it allows her to start babbling on, talking about how exciting it is to be expecting a baby, and right then the realization dawned on me that I yet again unknowingly confirmed that I am pregnant, even though I'm not. Today she calls me again and asks me whether the baby is doing okay, and I'm just sitting here in this 3-foot deep grave that I've been digging for myself for so long, and all I can do is laugh nervously and mumble something under my breath. So yeah, this is me sitting here thinking I will have to adopt a baby, or pretend that my niece is my kid, or just simply quit my job to get away from this awkward situation I created for myself. I know I should just tell her what's going on, but my social anxiety just wins and leaves me absolutely mortified at the thought of telling her. And I really regret all of this, and I seriously feel really dumb. Wow, that is seriously hilarious. The first time I can completely understand that, you know what, she was kind of being vague and a little bit nosy, so it would be easy to mistake it and get it wrong somehow. But the second time is absolutely on you. You should have known and you should have said something. Also, I don't think this is that serious. You can literally just call her up and be like, "Hey, I thought you were talking about my wedding ring and my engagement. So no, I'm not pregnant and this has been a huge misunderstanding." And then maybe just don't call her ever again. Like seriously, I would be so mortified if that happened to me and I was in your shoes. And it's so bad because she keeps calling you. She keeps trying to bring this up. Like that's awful. So hopefully this gets worked out and something like this doesn't happen to you ever again. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.